Chapter 753. Jiang Tian chuckled. Song Shuangyan, do you know why I spared your life? You think I didn't dare to kill you in Yanjin? No, I want to kill you. Who can stop me? I asked you to lure Hao Taichung out. What do you mean? How dare you spout such arrogant words? Do you know that sect leader Hao is half a step away from Earth-level deity? He can kill you with one finger. Kneel down and apologize. Bai Diqing and Song Shuangyan were enraged. Their faces turned red as they shouted at the same time. In their eyes, Hao Taichung was like a god. How could they allow Jiang Tian to blaspheme him? Song Shuangyan, you really jinxed your husband. Luckily, I abandoned you in time. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and suddenly pointed at White Emperor City. Bang! Bai Diqing's head exploded. Blood gushed out, and his headless body fell to the ground. You died because you talked too much. Jiang Tian laughed disdainfully. I don't even want to kill this kind of ant. But I don't want to let him go. Then Jiang Tian looked at Song Shuangyan and said calmly, Look, I said you jinxed your husband and you really did it. You. Jiang Tian, you devil. You will die a horrible death. Song Shuangyan was stunned at first. Then, she was so angry that her face turned green. She hated Jiang Tian to the core. Tears streamed down her face, and she clenched her teeth. She was in so much pain that she couldn't get over it for a long time. Now, she and Bai Diqing had gotten to know each other, and they were in love with each other. They were just about to get along well with each other, yet in just a few days, she was killed by Jiang Tian. Master, why didn't you stop him? Song Shuangyan grabbed Hao Taichung's arm and felt wronged. How could I just watch Bai Diqing get killed? He is your great-great-grandson. Who would have thought that he would actually attack a junior? How despicable. He has lost the bearing of an expert. Hao Taichung's face was slightly embarrassed, and then he angrily scolded. How could he not have expected Jiang Tian to make a move? How could Jiang Tian let an ant like Bai Diqing off with such a cheap mouth go? In fact, Hao Taichung had also stopped him. He had attacked 3 times in an instant, using spells, martial arts, and swordsmanship in an attempt to block Jiang Tian's finger light. However, it was completely useless. Jiang Tian had broken through it all the same, and White Emperor Cheng had been killed right under his nose. To Hao Taichung, heartache was secondary. After all, he was an expert who had bitterly cultivated for 100 years. He had long since severed his emotions and desires. He had transcended the mortal world, and was close to being inhuman. He viewed blood relations as insignificant. Otherwise, how could he concentrate on cultivating bitterly and pursue the supreme great Tao if he was bound by emotions? However, he was extremely angry. His great-great-grandson was killed right under his nose. That was a slap to his face. It was a humiliation that he could not bear. Who was Jiang Tian? An itinerant cultivator who rose to prominence in the secular world. In the eyes of the semi-hidden sects, itinerant cultivators in the secular world were ants and dust. They had low statuses and were not worth mentioning. Who was he? He was the leader of the Amei sword sect. Amei was the orthodox Taoist sect, and was almost on par with Kunlun. As the leader of such a famous sect, he could only watch helplessly as his descendant was killed. If this matter were to spread, he would be the biggest laughingstock in the semi-hidden sections. He would go down in infamy for 10,000 years. Kong Taichu, today I will kill you. Hao Taichung's eyes widened in anger. He roared loudly like a thunderclap and attacked directly. Boom. He took a step forward. With just one step, he was like a ferocious tiger, with endless power and lingering charm. Boom. He leaped 100 meters into the air, and stood in midair. He suddenly stretched out his arm like a dragon emerging from the sea. He grabbed lightly and roared. Innate Chi, great dragon catching hand. Instantly, a giant palm that was 10 meters long condensed out of thin air. It was covered with dense scales as if it was made of steel. Its fingernails were like bone hooks, and it clawed at Jiang Tian. This is the secret art created by the founder of the Amei sect, the White Brow Immortal. It can capture dragons and tigers, kill demons and eliminate monsters. It's really terrifying. Zhou Zixuan was shocked by the sight, and sighed at his own inferiority. Although the Amei sect focused on sword cultivation, as a large sect that had lasted for thousands of years, its foundation was too profound. All kinds of Xian sect internal arts, fist arts, palm arts, and body arts were powerful and far superior to those of ordinary sections. The great dragon-catching hand swept across the sky. Wherever it passed, huge rocks collapsed and clouds flew into the sky. With the long tassel in his hand, he seemed to be able to catch turtles in the 5 seas and capture the moon in the 9 heavens. Run! Run! Many Russian overlords retreated, fearing that they would be implicated. A senior magus, who was as powerful as a transcendent magus, was only a little bit slower than Ji Hao, and was crushed into pieces by Ji Hao's dragon-catching hand. This Kanei great dragon-catching hand has reached 90% completion. Seeing this, even Li Jiuyo was moved. He thought that it would take him some effort to break this move. 1,000 years ago, the White-Brow Immortal caught a real dragon in the Min River with this great dragon-catching hand. Song Shuangyan raised her chin and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, as if he were already a dead man. She mocked him as much as she could, as if she was the one who had used the great dragon-catching hand. Jiang Tian, you're just an ant in the mortal world. You don't know the vastness of the world and the power of the dragon. You want to fight with my master? You want to compete with the sun and the moon? You must be tired of living. Really? Jiang Tian sneered and pointed in the air. Freeze. As Jiang Tian finished speaking, the mighty great dragon capturing hand was actually frozen there, motionless, as if it was dead. What's going on? Song Shuangyan's gloating smile froze on her face. Her eyes were filled with horror as if she had seen a ghost. How is this possible? Hao Taichung was dumbstruck. His heart was thumping with fear. His feet slanted and he almost fell. The Kanei great dragon-catching hand was the trump card of the Amei sword sect. At his level he could crush tanks and destroy mountains. It contained a powerful force and profound dharma power. Hao Taichung was confident that he could kill a man deity with one hand. But he didn't expect that Jiang Tian could freeze it with only one word. That was incredible. He couldn't even understand what dharma access Jiang Tian had used. That was not the way to play the game, okay? Haha, half-step to earth deity. So what? Jiang Tian stepped on the air and suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. The next moment he appeared in front of Hao Taichung like a ghost. That's too fast. Can he break the sound barrier? A Russian powerhouse exclaimed. No, that's not breaking the sound barrier. The faster the body is, the more turbulent the airflow will be. But there's no turbulence at all. Zhou Zishuan broke out in a cold sweat as he watched. His face was already deathly pale. Could it be that Jiang Taichu was using the spatial manipulation divine art that allowed him to shrink space into an inch? I have to retreat. Hao Taichung had realized how terrifying Jiang Tian was. He wanted to distance himself and use the art of Shu Mountain. Why can't I move? Did he use some kind of restriction spell? But he found that no matter how hard he tried, the essence chi of heaven and earth remained motionless. He couldn't move at all, as if he had fallen into cement. Is the semi-hidden sect that great? Slap. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and slapped Hao Taichung's face, causing blood to spurt out from his nose. Kung Taityu. Hao Taichung's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He was the sect master of Mount Amei, a grand master of the semi-hidden sect, respected by thousands of people, and yet he had been slapped by Jiang Tian. That was a great humiliation. It was worse than his mother being humiliated by Jiang Tian. Another slap. Everyone exclaimed and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mr. Jiang loved to slap people's faces. He had slapped the wolf ancestor before, but now it was Hao Taichung's turn. Wolf King Alexander, Zhou Zishuan, Li Jiuyo, and the others were shocked. Only those who had reached their level and surpassed the immortal state warriors knew what Jiang Tian's action meant. Was Hao Taichung a weakling? Didn't he have any means? If they thought so, they would be stupid and a big joke. He was a half-step human deity who controlled the sect and had thousands of dharma spells at his fingertips. He could destroy mountains and cities with one slash. But at that moment he couldn't use any of his means. That meant that the restriction created by Jiang Tian had completely isolated and imprisoned the spirit chi of heaven and earth in that area. It was like removing the firewood from the bottom of a cauldron. restraining all Dharma spells. That was too terrifying. It was terrifying. No matter how many means you had, without the spirit chi of heaven and earth, you couldn't use any Dharma spells. Kang Taechu is too powerful. I'm afraid the old man is no match for him. He's too weak. Zhou Zixuan shook his head regretfully, feeling sad and dispirited. He had just become a human deity, and was full of passion and ambition. But at that moment, all of it turned into cold sweat. I didn't expect such an expert to rise in the mortal world. We are no match for him, no match for him. Beside him, Liang Zichen and the other 4 elders were also dumbfounded, and a chill ran down their spines. Especially Liang Zichen. Back then, he wanted to take revenge for the many disciples of Dian Song who had died in the hands of Jiang Tian on Mount Everest. Now it seemed that revenge was useless. If he rushed up, he would be instantly killed by Jiang Tian. At that moment, even the earth deity Situ Xiao was shocked. He frowned and his heart was in turmoil. Jiang Tian had once killed his disciple Situ Yuanhao in the ancient Wudong. Of course, he knew how powerful Jiang Tian was. He was at least stronger than a human deity, the peak of the worldly immortal realm. He felt that he had already overestimated Jiang Tian. After all, Jiang Tian was too young. Even if he was a visitor from outer space, there were too few resources on Earth. It was very difficult for him to cultivate to the human deity realm. But now, he found that Jiang Tian was even more powerful than he had imagined. He was unfathomable. What about you? Sect leader of Amei, the #1 swordsman in the late Qing dynasty? Show me how shameless you are. Jiang Tian slapped him again. Chapter 754. Clang. The sound was like the evening drum and morning bell. It was not crisp, but the sound of metal and stone colliding. This was Hao Taichung summoning the astral wind to strengthen his body. He wanted to resist Jiang Tian's attack. Under the loud noise, a small hill under their feet was shattered. Among the flying snow and ice, countless boulders were blasted dozens of meters away. Ouch! Only then did the crowd realize the danger of the battle. This was simply destructive. Even though Hao Taichung summoned a gust of wind and activated his protective divine art, half of his face was still cracked by Jiang Tian's palm strike, and a few of his teeth, which were as sharp as swords, flew out. His steel-like beard was covered in blood. Do you admit defeat? Jiang Tian sneered mockingly. Aren't you very powerful? Show me what you're made of. Jiang Tian's tongue was vicious. You talk about the righteous sects and Mount Amei. You talk about me, Kang Taechu, as an ant. Who is the ant now? Righteous sects and 1,000-year-old Mount Amei. What's so great about the sect leader? You're still letting me slap you. But your skin is a little thicker. You have the astral wind to protect your face. How can it not be thick? At this time, Song Lingshuang was stunned. Her stable worldview was about to collapse. She had never thought that the worthless Jiang Tian would be so powerful that he could slap Hao Taichung. After entering Mount Shuamei, she had heard too many stories about Hao Taichung. He was the instructor of the imperial bodyguards of the Guangxu Emperor. He once dominated Wuxia with one sword. He defeated immortal state grandmasters consecutively. He was known as the top swordsman of the Qing dynasty. In her heart, Hao Taichung was like a legend. He was powerful and unattainable. But in front of Jiang Tian, Hao Taichung was like a 3-year-old child facing Tyson. He was tortured and humiliated by Jiang Tian. I don't admit defeat. With his face covered in blood, Hao Taichung's originally ugly face became even more hideous and terrifying. He gnashed his teeth in anger. His hatred for Jiang Tian was monstrous. You've sealed my technique, so I can't use my Mount Shu sword art. If we fight, I may not lose to you. From his point of view, what he said was naturally correct. The sword Xiu of Amei was famous throughout the world. Even though they were not as powerful as the flying swords of Kunlun, they still had many sword techniques such as the art of controlling the sword. These sword techniques were all specialized in long-range attacks. Jiang Tian's mana was strong, but he might not be able to restrict the spiritual qi of heaven and earth on a large scale. He still had the advantage. All right, your grandpa Jiang specializes in dealing with all kinds of disobedience. I'll give you a chance to display your Amei swordsmanship. Jiang Tian smiled contemptuously and kicked Hao Taichung in the chest. Whoosh! Hao Taichung was like a human cannonball. After flying for a kilometer, it smashed into a small mountain and fell into rolling boulders and snow. The entire area was dead silent. No one came back to their senses and looked at the snow and rocks in silence. Motherfucker, he was beaten even worse than a dog. A moment later, there was a loud bang. A crimson shadow broke through the snow and rocks and tore open the sky like a missile launched from a missile. Damn you, Heavenly Lord! Today, I'm going to tear you into pieces, Kong Taichu. Hao Taichung shouted at the top of his lungs. His voice was like rolling thunder, spreading out for dozens of miles, shaking countless icebergs within a radius of a few kilometers, causing the earth to quake and mountains to shake. Hao Taichung was too angry. His lungs were about to explode. He was a half-step earth-level deity, the sect master of Amei, and he had been slapped in the face. Clank. He gritted his teeth and slapped the back of his head. A 3-inch crimson sword flew out from a cloud of blood mist. The small sword expanded in the wind, and suddenly turned into a streak of red light. It swept across the sky and shot toward Jiang Tian. Blood Divine Sword. He has mastered the unique skill of the Amei sword sect. Blood Divine Sword. Zhou Zixuan shouted in horror. Hao Taichung has lost his mind facing an overlord like Kong Taichu. Li Jiuyo shook his head and sighed. His face was full of sorrow. The Blood God Sword was actually similar to Situ Yuanhao's Blood Condensation Magic Sword, but it was even stronger. The Blood Divine Sword was also a sword nourished by the blood essence of one's cultivation. Once it was activated, it would gather all of one's cultivation and form an attack that could destroy the world. But the most powerful part of it was the word divine. When the owner infused part of his soul energy into the Blood Divine Sword, the sword would be like a quasi-spiritual artifact, or even a spiritual artifact. The precision and ingenuity of the attack would be increased, making it impossible to defend against. However, the drawbacks were not small. Once it was used, it would be very harmful to Sun Hao's blood essence and soul energy. Cover the sky with one hand, seal thousands of miles. Facing this ferocious sword, Jiang Tian laughed mockingly and let out a low shout. In an instant, there was silence around Hao Taichung. Everything stopped. At this moment, one could clearly see that the hilt of the small sword was still in its original shape. At the back of the hilt, there were bloodlines that were connected to Hao Taichung's acupoints and meridians. And the body of the sword had turned into extremely sharp blood-red lights. These lights were crystal clear, like melted red agate threads. There were thousands of them, densely packed, and they were more than a few hundred meters long. They meandered forward like the tentacles of a mollusk, giving people a feeling that they were alive. But these blood-red lights were extremely sharp. Each one of them could kill an immortal state warrior, pierce through gold and stone, and cut through everything. Many blood-red lights pierced toward Jiang Tian together, forming a blood-red chain. Haha, these bloodlines are a little interesting. Jiang Tian took a step forward and directly arrived in front of Hao Taichung. He flicked the blood-colored light with his finger, and it actually emitted a crisp sound, as if he was knocking on glass. Hao Taichung, are you convinced now? Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and he sneered. I'm convinced. I'm willing to give you the map of the ruins of immortality. Hao Taichung's body was confined. Only his eyes could move. His tongue was stiff, and he looked terrified. If he could move, he would have kowtowed to Jiang Tian and begged for mercy. At this time, everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. Half a step to Earth Immortal, the leader of the Amei Sword sect. But he was still trampled by Jiang Tian. This was incredible. If this news spread, it would shock the world. Are you convinced? Jiang Tian sneered and said. Unfortunately, it's too late. Jiang Tian's 5 fingers were like hooks. He grabbed Hao Taichung's head and searched his mind with his divine sense. After finding the information he wanted, Jiang Tian pulled out Hao Taichung's head along with his spine. Who's still not convinced? Come up. Jiang Tian threw the bloody head and spine onto the ground, then stomped Hao Taichung's corpse into pieces and turned it into a pile of mush. After that, he swept the crowd with his gaze and shouted in a stern voice. Seeing this, Song Shuangyan was so shocked that her whole body trembled. She fell to the ground and her legs were so weak that she couldn't stand up. Hao Taichung was defeated and dead. If Jiang Tian wanted to kill her, who in the world could stop him? Hao Taichung was dead. Who in the world could be Jiang Tian's opponent? Perhaps only Lin Qingyang, the leader of Kunlun, and Yi Tianren and a few other powerful people in Hongmeng could. But they were all reclusive people. The point was, if Jiang Tian wanted to kill her, no one could stop him. Alas, as expected of the national hunter, as expected of an earth immortal, this old man concedes defeat. At this time, Zhou Zishuan's face was full of shock. Then it turned into endless decadence. He bowed deeply to Jiang Tian to show his respect. In the face of Jiang Tian's power, he was completely desperate and didn't have the courage to fight. Master Kong, this old man concedes defeat. Even the arrogant Li Juya was afraid and uneasy at this time. He didn't have the confidence to fight with Jiang Tian. Hao Taichung was a half-step earth immortal, and he was only at the peak of the human immortal. Hao Taichung was crushed by Jiang Tian. He didn't have much chance of winning. Zhou Zishuan, didn't you ask me to kowtow and admit my mistake? Who gave you the right to do so? Jiang Tian stepped in the air and came to Zhou Zishuan. He raised his hand and slapped him. Slap. Zhou Zishuan was slapped to the ground and his face was red. He was angry, but the next moment, he suppressed his anger and lowered his head. At the moment when Jiang Tian slapped him, he tried to dodge and use his secret skill to block, but he couldn't. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth around him was still confined by Jiang Tian's hand. He had no chance to resist at all. It could be said that if he showed the slightest dissatisfaction, he could only be crushed by Jiang Tian. Is Diansong so great? The sect leader is here, Liang Zichen and the other 5 elders are also here. If you have the guts, fight with me. Jiang Tian kicked Zhou Zishuan in the chest and made him roll on the ground. Then he slapped Liang Zichen and the other 4 elders to the ground. Master Kong, we don't dare. Grandmaster Jiang, please quell your anger and spare our lives. In the face of such humiliation, Zhou Zishuan, Liang Zichen and the others didn't even dare to refute. Instead, they knelt down in front of Jiang Tian and kept kowtowing to beg for mercy. Li Juyo? Where the plum blossoms pass, not a blade of grass grows. Fierce ghosts dominate the 9 nether? Jiang Tian came to Li Juyo again and raised his hand to slap him a few times. Master Kong, I don't dare. How dare an old man in front of you? Please spare the old man's life. Li Juyo was beaten until he screamed miserably. Blood spurted out of his nose and his teeth flew out. Master Kong, please stop hitting me. If you hit me again, I will be finished. He knelt on the ground, put his hands up in front of his chest, and swayed quickly, begging for mercy. He was terrified. After Jiang Tian slapped him, his cultivation was suppressed a little. After a few slaps, his cultivation fell continuously. Now he was about to fall to the divine realm. This was too terrible. You are quite famous. Suppress the 9 underworlds? Why don't you show me how you suppress the 9 underworlds? Jiang Tian kicked him in the chest and shouted coldly, why don't you show me how you're suppressing me? Li Juyo was kicked until blood spurted out of his mouth. He flew hundreds of meters away like a golf ball. You called me an ant. Now you know who the ant is, right? Jiang Tian was not going to let him off after gaining the upper hand. He kicked him again, sending him rolling far away. I'm an ant, I'm a bug. Master Kong, please stop hitting me. I'm convinced, I'm really convinced. Li Juyo was lying on the ground like a dead dog. He was covered in blood and his hair was disheveled. Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. Li Juyo was at the peak of the human immortal realm, and the sect leader of the Tianshan sect. No one dared to provoke him in the whole northwest of Wuxia. But Jiang Tian was beating him like a stray dog. This was like child's play. Chapter 755. You want to kill me and force me to hand over my cultivation method? What a joke. You really don't know who you are. Jiang Tian was disdainful and said with a mocking expression, the person who can snatch my cultivation technique has not been born yet. For a moment, there was a dead silence. No one dared to say a word. They just knelt on the ground and looked at Jiang Tian in horror. At this time, Song Shuangyan was scared out of her wits and subconsciously wanted to escape. However, she suddenly found that she couldn't move at all, as if she had been immobilized. Jiang Tian, what did you do to me? Song Shuangyan was trembling with fear and screamed in a sobbing voice. After I finish this fight, I will settle accounts with you. Jiang Tian smiled coldly, and then ignored her. His fighting spirit was rising steadily. He looked at Situ Xiao and said, Fellow cultivator Situ, today only you are qualified to make me fight with you. Let's fight. If Jiang Tian had said this before this fight, everyone would have thought that he was talking nonsense. They would have snorted at him and scolded him for boasting shamelessly. But now Jiang Tian had suppressed the wolf ancestor with a raise of his hand, killed Hao Taichong with a flick of his finger, and slapped Zhou Zixuan and Li Jiuyo. All of them were shocked and terrified, and they felt that Jiang Tian's words were completely natural. Situ Zhao's face turned solemn as he cupped his fists and bowed. His face was full of reverence as he said, I, Situ Xiao, seek Grandmaster Zhang's guidance. Sorry to offend you. As soon as he said that, the whole place became silent. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement and shock. Jiang Tian was known as Earth Immortal Jiang, and Situ Xiao was said to have stepped into the Earth Immortal realm as early as the end of the Qing dynasty. An Earth Immortal was a figure that only appeared in legends. They were almost like legends. Today, two Earth Immortals were about to fight. If news of this got out, it would definitely shake the world. This was just too exciting. This battle was an exchange of pointers, a contest, a showdown between the two strongest people on this planet, but at the same time, it would also determine the ownership and control of the Sword Tomb. As for the Sword Tomb, it was rumored that it was the place where a celestial immortal had fallen. After entering, no matter if it was Jiang Tian or Situ Xiao, both of them would obtain boundless resources and fortuitous encounters as resources to advance into the heavenly immortal realm. After this battle, a celestial immortal would definitely be born. The battle between earthly immortals is finally about to break out. There hasn't been such a battle in the past 500 years. I didn't expect that I would be able to witness such a brilliant battle in this age of chaos. This trip was not in vain. That's right, it's an unprecedentedly brilliant battle. Meanwhile, Zhou Zixuan, Li Jiuyo, and the other experts were looking forward to it. Their hands were trembling slightly. This battle was more brilliant than the battle between Jiang Tian and Zhang Qianlei, compared to the battle between Jiang Tian and Dong Bing, and the Blue Storm. This was a battle between earthly immortals. A battle between earthly immortals and holy kings had not happened in the past few hundred years. Even if it had happened before, no one had witnessed it with their own eyes. There were only some unfounded legends. To these experts, watching such a battle was a great fortuitous encounter. Those human immortals could even go one step further, and step into the half-step earthly immortal realm. Jiang Tian and Situ Xiao stood face to face with a distance of 1 mile between them. However, neither of them made a move. It seemed that they were accumulating their strength and waiting for something. In the wind and snow, the two tall and majestic figures were like two lofty and steep mountains in the eyes of the crowd. They were unforgettable and filled with reverence. At this time, all the experts began to retreat outside the circle. Originally, they were about 1 kilometer away from Jiang Tian. Now they retreated more than 10 miles and stood on a snowy mountain, watching with binoculars. Hao Taichong, a half-step earthly immortal, could destroy a city and a mountain with a sword. When earthly immortals fought, it was terrifying and full of destructive power. Most likely, all living things within a radius of 10 miles would be annihilated without any chance of survival. Under Jiang Tian's divine sense, they also took Song Shuangyan away. Of course, her range of movement was restricted by Jiang Tian's secret method, so there was no way she could escape. Master Kong, I'm going to make a move. I hope you won't hold back and fight with me with all your strength. Suddenly, Situ Xiao said seriously. In an instant, there was a rumbling sound. In the thunderous sound, a surge of murderous aura surged into the sky. Murderous thunder. This murderous aura was not genuine qi, but pure invisible spiritual energy and willpower. However, it was like a fire beacon, soaring into the sky as high as 300 meters, tearing through the wind and snow. What a terrifying murderous aura. Zhou Zishuan was frightened and looked up. With this point alone, Situ Xiao was far superior to Hao Taichong. When an earthly immortal is angry, his murderous aura will cover the sky as high as 300 meters. The muscles in the corners of his eyes were trembling. Compared with Situ Xiao, who was full of murderous aura and had a calm face but a thunderstorm in his heart, Hao Taichong was like a 3-year-old brat who squeaked. Situ Xiao fought against the Qing dynasty and restored the Ming dynasty. It is said that he killed 50,000 Qing soldiers with one sword. Li Jiuyo's face was also full of fear and solemnity. He said bitterly, "This murderous aura can only be cultivated by killing tens of thousands of people." He was famous for his fierceness, and was said to be able to frighten the ghosts in the 9 serenities. However, compared with Situ Xiao's murderous aura, his murderous aura was just like playing house. It was not worth mentioning. The other powerhouses were all shocked and excited. The scene in front of them was too shocking. Jiang Tian will die, right? He must die, he must die. This is Situ Xiao. Who can compare with his murderous aura? Look at Jiang Tian. He has no murderous aura at all. Weakling. Ant. Song Shuangyan's beautiful face lost all color. Her mouth was muttering incantations as she crazily cursed Jiang Tian. She was also comforting herself, hoping that Situ Xiao would kill Jiang Tian. In the field, Jiang Tian's expression did not change. He said calmly, "Situ Xiao, the greatest respect for an opponent is to fight with all your strength and not hold back. Don't worry. I respect you, so I will not be polite." Good. I have not met a worthy opponent for 300 years. My life is lonely and I am as lonely as a living dead. Today, it is my great fortune to have a martial arts competition with a peerless powerhouse like Master Kong. Situ Xiao smiled with emotion. He was heroic and generous. He had the air of a scholarly hero from ancient times. He suddenly made his move. Clang. He directly punched out. This punch was not fancy at all. It was simple and direct, like a retired old man practicing boxing in the park. It had a sense of returning to simplicity. But there was a loud bang. The void cracked. A big hole was torn in the 1-mile area between Jiang Tian and Situ Xiao, and it became a vacuum. The flying snow, which was originally like catkins, burst out like shrapnel after being hit by the violent punch. It pierced many small holes in the solid ice and the ground. The surging and vast genuine qi formed a transparent fist, which was the size of a millstone. It pulled a white turbulence in the air, and it was like a high-speed train. Wherever the giant fist passed, a deep hole was plowed in the ground. Countless boulders were shattered, like a string of firecrackers. Too weak. Jiang Tian just flicked his finger. Clang. The golden light flickered, and a finger light condensed from the 7th metal true essence appeared in the shape of a golden sword. The golden sword was engraved with ancient Tao patterns. It shone brightly and was 10 meters long. It was like a missile that pierced through the sky and pierced toward the giant fist. Boom. The genuine qi giant fist was penetrated, and then it exploded uncontrollably. A huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the aurora in the sky was shaken and distorted. The battle was like a nuclear explosion, earth-shattering. Within a few miles of the surrounding area, the ground trembled violently, and a snow mountain hundreds of meters high collapsed directly, and some were shaved off. Countless ice boulders and snowflakes were thrown away, mixed in the billowing airwaves, drifting and lashing out into the distance. Even if the spectators were separated by 5 kilometers, they still felt a scorching heat, and they were thrown off their feet by the waves of air. The ground beneath their feet shook intensely like the skin of a drum, and they couldn't even stand stably. Oh my God! It's terrible. This is definitely beyond the power of a strategic missile. A Russian mixed martial arts master exclaimed. His face turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. An Earth-level deity was too powerful. Fortunately, they had run far away, otherwise they would have been crushed. The Wolf King's forehead was also covered in cold sweat. Jiang Tian's power was too terrifying. If he fought with him, he wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. So this is the power of an Earth-level deity. Its destructive power. Zhou Zishuan exclaimed. An Earth-level deity. Except for the superpowers, the armies of ordinary countries are powerless. Li Juyo exclaimed. Then, a figure rose to the sky like a dragon and reached 400 meters high. It was Situ Xiao. If one looked closely, they would find that there was a big hole in his shirt under his ribs, and there were mottled blood stains. It seemed that he had suffered a minor injury. Who's the winner of this round? Could it be that Mr. Jiang has fallen? Anfia exclaimed. No one could see clearly in that area. Anfia and the others stood on tiptoe and looked curiously. He must be dead. Who can withstand such a powerful punch? Song Shuangyan gritted her teeth and gloated. But then her smile froze. Kong Teichu is stronger. Li Juyo rolled his eyes and said with difficulty. He only flicked his finger, but he broke Situ Xiao's punch. And it seems that Situ Xiao is injured. He can hurt an earth-level deity. What kind of cultivation, art does Master Kong practice? Zhou Zishuan exclaimed. That's impossible. How could Situ Xiao be inferior to an ant like him? Song Shuangyan was unwilling to admit defeat. She waved her hands and screamed hysterically. An earth-level deity's body was as tough as diamond. It was no longer a mortal body. It was impervious to fire and water and could withstand artillery fire and even missiles. Their bodies wouldn't rot after 100 years. And yet he was injured by Jiang Tian's finger? That was unbelievable. She didn't know that Jiang Tian's golden finger aura was so sharp that it could cut through anything in the world. It also contained Dao patterns. No matter how many divine powers Situ Xiao had, they were all dissolved in an instant. Chapter 756. Master Kong, I'm no match for you in terms of energy and cultivation. Situ Xiao stood in the sky, his robe fluttering in the wind like an immortal. He shook his head regretfully and his face was full of fear. In fact, Situ Xiao was indeed injured. Jiang Tian's sword-shaped finger aura didn't lose its momentum after breaking the giant fist. It still pierced towards Situ Xiao sharply. Situ Xiao used 3 kinds of powerful body techniques and footwork to dodge the attack, but his clothes were still cut open, and an inch-long wound appeared below his ribs. You have a good eye. The next moment, Jiang Tian crossed 100 meters with his hands behind his back, as if he was stepping on an invisible staircase. He only needed 4 steps to reach the sky. He's really not dead. How can he be so strong? Song Shuangyan was disappointed and stomped her feet angrily. In the sky, Situ Xiao's eyes lit up and he praised leisurely. Grandmaster Zhang's aura is sometimes ethereal, like smoke and fog, and sometimes heavy, like Vajra dark steel. It can be said that hardness and gentleness complement each other, with endless changes. I have never seen such a miraculous aura in my 300 years. Situ Xiao, you're also talented, but unfortunately, you're cultivating a small Dao. Compared to my supreme Dao, you're too far away. Jiang Tian sighed. That was true. Situ Xiao's innate talent was extraordinary. He had both perseverance and perception. If he was in the cultivation world, he would have broken through to the foundation establishment stage, or even the golden core stage with many cultivation resources such as cultivation techniques, great medicines, and divine herbs. However, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. The spirit chi on Earth had already declined, and it had become a dead planet. Many cultivation arts had been cut off. Without resources, Situ Xiao could only stop there. Alas, I know I can't win, but I still have to fight. Situ Xiao sighed and said slowly. Master Kong, I fell into the Jialing River more than 200 years ago. By chance, I obtained a set of sword techniques engraved in a coffin. Gradually, Situ Xiao's eyebrows revealed an arrogant and fierce expression as he said in a cold voice. This sword art is an ancient flying sword art. According to research, it should have been left by first Madame Gongsun of the Tang dynasty. But it is slightly different from the Kunlun flying sword. It is much sharper and trickier. Please comment on it, fellow cultivator Jiang. After saying that, he made a hand seal and the sword on his back flew out of the scabbard and laid horizontally in front of him. When this sword left the scabbard, a loud noise rang out, like the rumbling of thunder and the roaring of an azure dragon. A green sword chi that could sweep across heaven and earth shot up into the sky from his back. Situ Xiao held his sword in one hand and swung it horizontally in the air. This sword released a green light that was more than 100 feet long, and it pressed down on the mountains. Qingxua sword. Li Jiuyo screamed like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. His eyes were filled with extreme shock. It was an ancient treasure that had been used by the founder of the Amei sword sect, the White Brow Immortal. Later, it was lost in a war of killing demons and disappeared without a trace. Unexpectedly, it fell into the hands of Situ Xiao. This sword had an azure dragon coiled around the hilt like a rope. The body of the sword was green like a bolt of green lightning. Its shape was strange, and the light of the treasure was strong. Situ Xiao activated it with all his strength. His feet stepped on the dipper steps, his left hand made hand seals, and his mouth chanted. In the middle of this, his face turned purple and hot sweat flowed down his face. His body trembled violently, and his hands trembled crazily. It seemed that driving this sword was like lifting a 10,000-ton mountain. It was very strenuous and heavy. Go. Finally, his right arm that was holding the sword shook slightly. Crack. The moment this sword shot out, heaven and earth changed color. The void trembled uneasily, as if some kind of restriction had been opened. Tens of thousands of auroras, like rivers returning to the sea, were poured into this sword. To be more precise, this Qingxua sword was crazily swallowing the spiritual energy of this area. It was like a black hole, swallowing everything, even the auroras. The sky suddenly darkened, and the stars were clearly visible. Auroras. In fact, they were a kind of energy in themselves. They came from the Earth's magnetosphere, and the Sun's high-energy charged particle flow, which excited or ionized the molecules or atoms in the upper atmosphere. It was a kind of magnetic storm, containing the energy of the Sun. In a few breaths, a conical cyclone that was 1,000 meters long suddenly appeared in the sky. It spun and madly poured into the Qingxua sword. The cyclone became bigger and bigger. 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters, 3,000 meters, 4,000 meters. Finally, the tail of the cyclone was like a tornado, probing into the depths of the sky. The tail could not be seen. Rumble. The moment the boundless spiritual energy and auroras poured in, the Qingxua sword bloomed with azure light, as if it was alive, shaking uneasily. It was like a giant green thunder flickering incessantly. It was like a dormant dragon awakening. In an instant, the Qingxua sword spewed out tens of thousands of azure light, which turned into a sharp azure light, traversing hundreds of meters and piercing towards Jiangtian. Wherever the azure light passed, the void between Jiangtian and Situ Xiao was annihilated. Lightning swallowed and spat, and the magnetic storm was like thunder. Pieces of land exploded and mountains collapsed. At this moment, countless people looked up and stared at the huge azure light in the sky. The Qingxua sword, the sword controlling technique of the Situ family. I'm afraid that Kong Teichu won't be able to withstand this attack even if he's at the peak of the Earth Immortal realm. Zhou Zixuan shook his head regretfully. The Qingxua sword was originally a spiritual treasure, which contained the power of the azure dragon. Coupled with the sword controlling technique, Jiang Tian's chances of winning were slim. It comes like thunder, withdraws like the wrath of the river and sea, condenses like the clear light of the river and sea. Kong Teichu is in danger. Liang Zichen and the other Diansong elders were dazzled, their hearts palpitating. The strength of this sword was too terrifying. It could destroy a small city. It was not an exaggeration to say that it had the power to destroy a city. Senior Situ's sword is truly unparalleled. No one can rival it. Li Jiuyo also exclaimed. His eyes were full of fear and fascination. Jiang Tian will definitely die. The Situ family is famous for their sword-controlling technique. With this famous sword of Mount Amei, their attack power has increased tenfold. How can he not die? Song Shuangyan screamed excitedly and cheered for Situ Xiao, as if Jiang Tian would definitely die. The power of this sword was immeasurable. It was like a cluster of missiles bombarding continuously. Wherever it passed, the area within 10 miles was in a mess and all living things would be destroyed. But at least it could be judged that this sword was 10 times or even 100 times more powerful than Hao Taichung's blood god sword. Spiritual artifact. Jiang Tian was shocked. This Qingxua sword had actually refined the soul of an azure dragon into it, forming a sword spirit. It was said that the founder of Mount Shu, White Brow spiritual master, had once captured a azure dragon in the Min River. The sword spirit of the Qingxua sword must have been refined with the divine soul of this azure dragon. Jiang Tian's divine sense could sense the hidden divine soul of the azure dragon. It was as thick as a water tank and hundreds of meters long. It was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in the air, swallowing the essence of the aurora and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Secondly, Situ Zhao's sword controlling technique was indeed powerful. It had actually defeated Jiang Tian's heaven-covering hand restriction. Even if it was only for a few breaths, he still succeeded in controlling the flying sword. In addition, his fighting style was also very smart. He actually came up with a strange move of swallowing the aurora energy. After swallowing the aurora energy to strengthen the azure dragon sword spirit, it then swallowed the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, forming a huge cyclone of thousands of meters long. Break it! In the face of this overbearing green light, Jiang Tian punched out. The millstone-like gung-metal divine fist pulled open a turbulence of air that was hundreds of meters long, forcibly shattering a small part of the green light. However, the rest still pierced towards Jiang Tian. Seeing this, Jiang Tian's expression turned serious. He raised his hand and grabbed at the air. With a boom, the green sword light exploded. Puff! On the other side, Situ Zhao directly withdrew the Qingxua sword and held it tightly in his hand. However, his arm was trembling, and he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Just now, Jiang Tian only casually punched and grabbed, but it made him feel like his divine soul was trembling. The Qingxua sword was almost taken away. He used 3 types of sword-controlling secret techniques in a row to take back the Qingxua sword by a hair's breadth. However, he was so tired that he spat out blood. Jiang Tian glanced at the sword wound on his shoulder. There was a bit of blood there, and his expression turned cold. Ever since he cultivated the gung-metal divine body, he was not even afraid of missiles. This was the first time he was injured. It was obvious how terrifying this sword was. Fellow Taoist Jiang, this sword I still failed. Situ Zhao shook his head and smiled bitterly again. There was a bit of disappointment in his eyes, but he was very impressed with Jiang Tian. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. He had used all his strength in this sword attack. It had consumed a lot of his qi, blood, and divine soul. This sword attack could not kill Jiang Tian, and the sword-controlling technique he used next would be weaker than this sword attack. There was almost no possibility of him winning. Fellow Taoist Situ, it's my turn now. I'll show you what a real flying sword is. Jiang Tian's expression turned cold. He patted the sky-devouring demonic gourd at his waist. Whoosh! In the sky, there seemed to be a black bolt of lightning. Little black flying sword whoosh. With a sharp whistle, it stabbed at Situ Zhao like a bolt of lightning. What a terrifying sword attack! The moment Jiang Tian's little black flying sword shot out, Situ Zhao was suddenly alarmed. His expression changed drastically. The little black flying sword's speed was not bad. There must be a sword whistle. However, Situ Zhao could not hear it at all. It was obvious that the sword's speed was definitely faster than the sound barrier. Sure enough, in less than a second, the little black flying sword had crossed a distance of several kilometers and appeared 50 meters in front of Situ Zhao. Dragon come! Situ Zhao's hair fluttered like an upside-down waterfall. He held the sword and roared. Roar! A dragon's roar shook dozens of miles. The green dragon sword spirit suddenly revealed its true form. What's that? At this moment, everyone looked up to the sky and exclaimed. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Oh my God! That's the dragon! Many powerful cultivators were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. A green dragon that was hundreds of meters long stretched across the sky. It shook its head and wagged its tail, roaring angrily as it circled. Its horns were prominent, and its mouth was as big as a blood basin. It had 2 huge red lantern-like eyes. The scales all over its body seemed to be made of green jade. They shone with a strange brilliance and were full of shocking power. Dragon! The dragon of Wuxia only existed in legends. It was the totem of the ancestors of Wuxia. It was like a god. However, with the development of science, who still believed in the existence of dragons. At this moment, the divine soul of a green dragon appeared in front of everyone. Everyone was suffocated, and their hearts almost jumped out of their throats. Chapter 757. This is the green dragon sword spirit of the green Suo sword. I didn't expect it to really exist. At this moment, Zhou Zixuan Li Jiuyo and the other Chinese overlords were extremely excited, as if they had seen a beautiful woman. This is too scary. Master Kong is really in danger. Even though they were a few miles apart, the Wolf King could feel the terrifying power of the green dragon. That vast and powerful aura almost made him collapse to the ground. Yes, he felt an extreme pressure, as if thousands of mountains were pressing down on him, and he was about to be smashed into pieces. Dragon. The dragon of Wuxia. This is incredible. The dragon of Wuxia, the legendary divine beast. Who can resist it? The other members of the moon-worshipping wolf clan, and many Russian overlords knelt down and prostrated themselves in worship. This green dragon sword spirit had been refined and raised by generations of overlords, and it contained vast dharma power. Just its terrifying size alone was enough to scare people out of their wits. What did it mean to be 300 or 400 meters long? It could wrap around a football field. It surpassed any known creature in the world. Such a thing spanned across the sky like a mountain, and it brought a great visual impact to people. It could even trigger phobia. Roar. The green dragon sword spirit danced in the air majestically. Its eyes were wide open, and the scales all over its body were exploding, as if it was a fierce wolf. The next moment, it opened its bloody mouth and spat out strong flames at Xiao Hei's flying sword. The flames were dozens of meters long. Suddenly, the snow mountains under Xiao Hei's flying sword collapsed. The ice that had been silent for many years melted in an instant, and water vapor rose and flowed down like a waterfall. Xiao Hei's flying sword paused, but the next moment, its speed skyrocketed, and a sharp sword aura more than 500 meters long pierced through the sky. This 100-meter-long sword ray was like a black line, easily piercing through the high-temperature flame spewed out by the sword spirit. Moreover, it cut through the sword spirit's mountain-like head like a knife cutting through water. The green dragon sword spirit's body, which had been nourished by many human immortals and earth immortals for hundreds of years, was as thick as a water tank, and its scales, which were as white as jade and could withstand the barrage of missiles, was cut by the sharp black sword aura like a hot knife cutting through butter. Roar! The azure dragon sword spirit let out a miserable shriek. Just as its huge head smashed down a few meters, a large amount of uncontrollable spiritual energy exploded. Bang bang bang! It was as if missiles had been shot down and exploded one after another. Huge green flowers appeared in the sky, forming a stretch of 1 kilometer long. Rumble! Below it, 7 or 8 icebergs that were over 100 meters tall collapsed one after another, as if there was a major earthquake. This time, the explosion was very close to Situ Shao. Within a radius of 1 to 2 kilometers, a chaotic mass of sword spirit fragments, ice, snow, gravel, and raging fire instantly enveloped Situ Shao. No one could see his condition clearly. Senior Situ, is he dead? Everyone looked up, their hearts palpitating, and their hearts pained. Whether it was Jiang Tian or Situ Shao, they both made people feel a kind of spirit, a kind of strength, pursuing the limits of human strength, going against the heavens, never admitting defeat, and never stopping. As magnificent as gods. They were like Prometheus who stole the heavenly fire. They moved forward unhurriedly, the heavenly fire dancing in their eyes, the flame of cultivation civilization, and the pursuit of the limits of human strength. That was the passion of martyrs. Whoosh! When the smoke and dust cleared, Situ Shao appeared. He stood on a half-destroyed mountain peak, and the Qing Suo sword in his hand was more than half broken. His left arm was shattered, the eerie white bones and strands of muscle fiber blowing weakly in the wind. There was a bloody hole in his chest, and the blood on his chest was mottled, but it seemed to have been condensed by some secret technique, and no more blood flowed down. I've lost. Situ Shao smiled bitterly, looked at Jiang Tian in the sky, and said, I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Everyone exclaimed, How could you lose to Jiang Tian? How is that possible? Song Shuangyan waved her hands, and shouted unwillingly, Senior Situ, you are already an earth immortal, And you have thousands of secret techniques to condense a body, right? Li Jiuyo couldn't help but ask. His meaning was very clear. He could still fight after condensing a body. Why did he admit defeat so quickly? This was also the confusion of many people, including Zhou Zixuan. In fact, not to mention the peak battle between human immortals and earth immortals, even the battle between immortal state immortals, as long as one didn't die, there was still a possibility of a comeback. Everyone could condense a body. As long as their blood essence and dharma power were not exhausted, it was not the end at all. Grandmaster Zhang's power of restrictions is too strong. It has simply reached the point where the laws can move at will, and are everywhere. Situ Xiao asked bitterly. If I'm not wrong, there is also a restrictive spell on this black flying sword that can't be healed. Right. You know your stuff. Jiang Tian nodded approvingly. Hearing this, everyone turned pale with fright and felt a chill in their hearts. Jiang Tian's restrictive spells were too terrifying. Even if you couldn't heal your wounds, how was that different from ordinary people? This restrictive spell is still in my body. To put it bluntly, all the methods I have to repair it are useless now, Situ Xiao said. Master Kang's sword just now went through my chest, and was only an inch away from my heart. With Master Kang's amazing perception, you must have shown mercy on purpose, right? Yes, you are talented. I don't have any deep hatred for you. I've killed too many people, and I'm tired of it. Jiang Tian said lightly. Master Kang, with a sharp sword in hand, conquering the world, stepping on the sun and the moon to stabilize the universe, just like an ancient deity. Situ Xiao was in awe. He dropped his sword on the ground and kowtowed to Jiang Tian, lowering his noble head. I, Situ Xiao, am very grateful and extremely respectful. I am willing to be Master Kang's lackey. The entire iceberg archipelago was silent. Everyone held their breaths as they watched this shocking scene. At this time, the earth-level deity bowed and kowtowed. Only Jiang Tian stood in the air with his hands behind his back like a deity. He made the earth-level deity bow to him. Song Shuangyan's body shook and her face turned pale. Then she couldn't help but tremble. Everyone was incomparably shocked. A storm was set off in their hearts as they stared blankly at this scene. A moment ago, under the pressure of Li Jiuyo, Zhou Zixuan, Hao Taichong wolf ancestor and Situ Xiao, Jiang Tian seemed to be in a hopeless situation. Even Alexander, the Wolf King, didn't have much confidence in Jiang Tian. These human deity saints, and even an earth-level deity, were all famous figures 100 years ago. They had once ruled a country and a sect, and had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas and destroy cities. All of them seemed to be more powerful than Jiang Tian. It seemed that Jiang Tian didn't have a chance of winning. But in the blink of an eye, Jiang Tian had killed Wolf Ancestor, crushed Hao Taichong, slapped Zhou Zixuan and Li Jiuyo, and made Situ Xiao kneel and kowtow to him sincerely. In such a dangerous situation, with so many terrible overlords, Jiang Tian had turned the tables. Who would believe that he defeated an earth-level deity for 100 years? Until now, Li Jiuyo, Zhou Zixuan and the other overlords in Wuxia still couldn't believe it. An itinerant cultivator who rose to prominence in the mortal world, and was just an ordinary person a few years ago, had now defeated the semi-hidden sects in Wuxia. The sect masters of the ancient Wudong sect, Diansong, a Mei sword sect, Tianshan sect and the ancestral master of the Hong sect were no match for Jiang Tian. Who would believe it if they told others? Alas, who else in the world can defeat Kang Taichu now? Zhou Zixuan shook his head and sighed. He felt like a hero past his prime. Compared to Jiang Tian, he felt that his cultivation was in vain. He had worked so hard for 100 years to become a human deity, but Chen Fan had defeated an earth-level deity after only 4 years of cultivation. In the West, only the Dark Parliament and the Holy See, and in Wuxia, only Kunlun and Hongmeng can fight with him. Li Jiuyo suddenly thought of something and exclaimed. He now suspected that even if Yi Tianren was born, he might not be able to defeat Jiang Tian in a one-on-one battle. Only the Kunlun and Hongmeng overlords could defeat him. Situ Xiao, I will help you repair your broken arm. Jiang Tian heaved a sigh. Situ Xiao was a good person and had a good vision and mindset. He challenged Jiang Tian not because of personal grudges, but because he wanted to reach the peak of martial arts. Besides, this person was open and honest. From the beginning to the end, he had only relied on his own combat power and Dharma power. He didn't use many defensive Dharma treasures. This was a real competition, not an unscrupulous way to win. What? My broken arm can be repaired? Situ Xiao couldn't believe it, and he was overjoyed. That's easy. Jiang Tian smiled and made a hand seal with his right hand. Suddenly, the vast and pure essence qi of heaven and earth gathered from all directions, and formed a mysterious and obscure talisman in the air. This talisman was engraved with countless mysterious runes, and exuded a vigorous aura of life. It was like a small world full of vitality, running on its own and growing endlessly. He was now at the 8th level of qi refinement. This kind of Dharma Tao to repair the body was at his fingertips. It could revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. Then Jiang Tian flicked his finger and the talisman flew out and wrapped around Situ Zhao's broken arm. Everyone was shocked to see that the meridians, blood vessels, and muscles on Situ Zhao's broken arm were recovering and growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths, the skin was covered and the arm was as good as new, as if it had never been injured. Then Jiang Tian used the same talisman to repair the Wolf King's arm. Master Kong, from now on you are my master. Immediately, the Wolf King was moved to tears. He kowtowed to Jiang Tian and prostrated himself on the ground as if he was seeing a real god. After doing all this, Jiang Tian floated to the ground and slowly walked in front of Song Shuangyan. He smiled and said, Song Shuangyan, how do you feel now? Jiang Tian, please spare me. I am willing to be your slave and serve you for the rest of my life. I will work hard without complaint and will not refuse. Song Shuangyan was so scared that her whole body trembled. She threw herself at Jiang Tian's feet and hugged his legs as she begged for mercy. At this time, she was so regretful that her intestines turned green. That deep regret could not be washed away by the 3 rivers and 5 seas. She had the urge to cry and her beautiful eyes glistened with tears. Chapter 758. Song Shuangyan had never thought that Jiang Tian, whom she had abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes, would be so powerful. He could defeat an earth-level deity. Give me a chance, please forgive me. Jiang Tian, I know I was wrong. Song Shuangyan was full of regret and fear. She looked at Jiang Tian with tears running down her cheeks. Her regret couldn't be described with words. Originally, she had a marriage agreement with Jiang Tian. If she had seen Jiang Tian's extraordinary strength and married Jiang Tian, she would have become the mother of a country like Zhao Xueqing, a supreme beauty who could make Hera bow her head, and be on an equal footing with the first ladies of many big countries. If she could have another chance, she would never have made an enemy of Jiang Tian. Instead, she would have loved Jiang Tian as a treasure and worshipped him as a god. She would have married him and become a gentle, considerate, and dutiful wife. She would have even been willing to be his slave. If she could turn back time, she would not have coveted the incomplete map of the ruins of immortality of the Jiang Tian family. Instead, she would have given the map collected by the Song family to Jiang Tian, and fought with him to achieve glory together. The incomplete map of the ruins of immortality was not a treasure. Jiang Tian was the most precious treasure in the world, the biggest support. A trace of coldness flashed across Jiang Tian's face. He said mockingly, Song Shuangyan, I've been merciful enough. I've given you so many chances to correct your mistakes. Don't you know that? Jiang Tian. Once these words were spoken, Song Shuangyan froze. She was dumbfounded and speechless. The regret in her heart grew even denser, and it surged and surged like the tide, causing her tears to flow violently as she wailed loudly. Jiang Tian's words were completely correct. Originally, when Jiang Tian came to Yanjing to ask for the incomplete map of the ruins of immortality, he had asked Lu Liwei and the others to deliver the message. She could return the favor to Jiang Tian and turn hostility into friendship. She could even borrow Jiang Tian's power. After all, Jiang Tian was not a narrow-minded person. The Zhang family had once let Jiang Tian down, but they repented in time and were brought to the altar by Jiang Tian. Originally, Zhang Qianlei had lost to Jiang Tian, and the Song clan had returned the map fragment. Jiang Tian had not been ruthless, and had let her go. Song Shuangyan had entered Mount Shuzame sect, and Jiang Tian had gone overseas to expand his territory. The well water did not interfere with the river water. In time, the Song family could still slowly revive. However, Song Shuangyan instigated Amei to compete with Jiang Tian for the map of the ruins of immortality, and followed Hao Taichung to kill Jiang Tian. From the beginning to the end today, she had been shouting about beating and killing. She kept saying that she was a righteous sect, and that Jiang Tian was an ant. She had done everything she could to humiliate him. Song Shuangyan sadly realized. At this time, the Amei sect had collapsed. Wanting to revive the Song clan was no different from a fool's dream. Moreover, she had offended Jiang Tian too thoroughly. Jiang Tian would not let her go. Yes, she had provoked and offended him again and again. No one would forgive her. Not to mention, Jiang Tian had always been a person who killed people and exterminated clans at the slightest provocation. It could be said that everything that had happened now was caused by her being too arrogant and condescending. She had repeatedly underestimated Jiang Tian's strength, so much so that she could not even save her own life. That day on Mount Yan on Cloud Watching Peak, I had said that I would leave my head with you. I would come and take it at any time. I would give you one chance, but there would not be a second time. Did you think I was joking? Jiang Tian smiled coldly, and his eyes suddenly became cold. You. Song Shuangyan was so scared that her face was paler than a corpse that had been dead for 3 days. Her delicate body trembled, her legs turned into noodles, and she even urinated. Jiang Tian wanted to kill her. This was not an exaggeration. She did not have any way to restrain Jiang Tian. The Song clan of Yanjing had fallen from the altar. Now even Jiang Tian's grandfather, the Zhang clan, was far inferior. And the Jiang clan had already controlled the entire country of Sidoni. They were on par with the great powers of the world. In terms of background, she was helpless. Song Shuangyan only had Mount Shuzame sect as her trump card. Now even the sect leader was killed by Jiang Tian with a flick of his finger. And Jiang Tian was now the dignified national hunter, the earth immortal Jiang that even Situ Shao respected. In terms of cultivation and strength, who could stop him? She was the meat on the chopping block, and Jiang Tian could do whatever he wanted to her. Go to hell. Song Shuangyan stood up. Just as she took a step back, Jiang Tian had already flicked his finger and pointed at her. Bang! Song Shuangyan's body exploded, turning into a sparkling red rain of blood that scattered on the ground. Immediately after, Jiang Tian shot out another fireball talisman, directly burning the rain of blood to the point that not even a trace of ash remained. Even her soul was burned to the point of being annihilated amidst her shrill screams. The original #1 socialite of Yanjing, the current Amei sect leader's disciple, Song Shuangyan, died just like that. Although Song Shuangyan's cultivation was very low, and in Jiang Tian's eyes, she was just an ant that he could destroy with a raise of his hand. But at this moment, Jiang Tian killed her, which made him secretly happy. The reason was very simple. It was like a mosquito that bit you a few times. Although it would not cause you any harm, it was still very annoying. Smashing it into smithereens with a single slap was simply refreshing and satisfying to his heart's content. The feeling was like eating a spicy hot pot in the dead of winter, or eating iced watermelon in the hot summer. Awesome. Jiang Tian sighed. At this moment, Jiang Tian suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the sword mound. A trace of seriousness appeared on his face. At this time, Situ Zhao's face was full of excitement. Master Kong, is the sword mound about to open? At this time, the entire sword mound trembled uneasily. The ice and snow on the 9 swords, which were dozens of meters tall, peeled off one after another, revealing a sharp edge. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gushed out, as if some kind of restriction had been opened. Through the valley entrance, one could see 10,000 rays of light blooming in the sword mound. Thousands of auspicious colors lingered, dazzling and magnificent. Moreover, strange flowers and plants emerged from the ice and snow, gently swaying full of vitality. Between heaven and earth, there was an abundance of vitality and spiritual energy. Even from far away, it made people feel ecstatic. At the entrance, there seemed to be a ripple of water that appeared. It made everything inside look hazy, like a fairyland. appearing even more mysterious and attractive. Master Kong, please allow us to enter the sword mound together. We will all obey Master Kong in the future. If you have any orders, we will not hesitate. Zhou Zixuan, Li Jiuyou and the others crossed hundreds of meters in one step and came through the ice and snow, earnestly begging. No. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense and his face became unprecedentedly solemn. He shouted loudly. All of you retreat quickly. Master Kong. Everyone was very disappointed and excited. Master Kong had made it clear that he wanted to monopolize the sword mound. This was a bit too selfish. At this time, the oligarchs such as Berezov and Anfia, as well as many Russian overlords, had also arrived in snowmobiles and helicopters. They stood at the door and bowed to Jiang Tian begging. Master Kong, can we go in? There is a time array hidden in this sword mound. It will imprison you forever and you can't escape. Jiang Tian's face was solemn. He glanced at everyone and said loudly. If you go in, all of your lifespan will be taken away within 10 days to half a month. I'll even make you beg for death. He didn't care about the life and death of these Russians. But Zhou Zixuan, Li Jiuyou and the others were after all from Wuxia. And they were the pillars of the semi-hidden sections. These semi-hidden sects overlords were very likely to play a big role in the country's crisis. Jiang Tian didn't want them to die for nothing. Master Kong, even if there is a time array, we are willing to do it. Zhou Zixuan said modestly without batting an eyelid. In fact, he clearly didn't believe Jiang Tian's words. He thought that Jiang Tian was scaring them and wanted to monopolize the resources. Seeing this, Jiang Tian sighed softly and shook his head. Good words couldn't persuade those who deserved to die. If they wanted to die, then let them die. Master Kong, this old man will go in first and wait for you inside. Seeing that Jiang Tian didn't say anything, Zhou Zixuan immediately led the 5 elders of Diansong into the sword tomb. Master Kong, I will go in and be your vanguard. If there are good treasures, you can choose first. Li Jiuyou smiled flatteringly, bowed to Jiang Tian and followed in. Father, should we go in? Anfia looked at Berezov and asked softly. Of course. A trace of eagerness appeared on Berezov's face. He was a Russian oligarch and was as rich as a country, but he was still suppressed by an overlord like the Wolf King. He hoped to get some treasures so that a few overlords like the Wolf King could come out of his family and dominate Siberia. But Mr. Jiang just said. Anfia was a little hesitant. Humph, he is just bluffing to scare us. He wants to monopolize all the treasures. Berezov said disdainfully in a low voice. But if he wants to monopolize all the treasures, he can stop us. Anfia hesitated and said in a low voice. Berezov frowned and then muttered to himself. What? I think he's still afraid of us deep in his bones. After all, we are close to the Russian emperor. From his point of view, it is better to scare us away than to attack us. His thoughts became clearer and clearer, and he became more and more confident. This is the Arctic Circle, where there is no life. A nuclear explosion is possible. If he kills us, the Russian emperor will definitely attack him. He straightened his body and a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. Even if he is the legendary Earth-level deity Holy King, he will still be afraid of Russian nuclear weapons. Yes, there are countless magical treasures in the sword tomb. Once we enter, we will benefit a lot. Let's go in. A Russian overlord said in a low voice as he looked at the entrance with burning eyes. At this time, everyone was ready to move. They rubbed their palms and stole glances at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian had already heard their conversation, but he was too lazy to stop them. He had already made it very clear just now. Since they wanted to court death, then he would leave them to their own devices. That's right, as long as we get 1 or 2 inheritances, we can become a peerless overlord and surpass the Wolf King. Seeing that Jiang Tian was ignoring them, another overlord rushed to the entrance impatiently. At this moment, many of the Russian powerhouses could no longer sit still, and rushed toward the entrance in a rush. Master Kong, are we still going in? The Wolf King said in a low muffled voice, his face solemn. He felt that Jiang Tian was definitely not bluffing. If Jiang Tian wanted to monopolize the sword tomb, he could have just killed them. Why would he need to scare them? As for the Russian emperor, Why would he offend the dignified Earth-level deity Jiang for the cheap lives of a few secular oligarchs? He dared to attack Jiang Tian. The tragic end of French President Sanchi was a lesson for him. Chapter 759. Wolf King, this place is very dangerous, but I still have a way to deal with it. Jiang Tian said calmly. I can protect you and Situ Xiao, but your followers don't have to go in. Also, ask them to go to Sidoni and pass a message to the Taiqing sect. If the enemy attacks, don't worry about me. Just protect Sidoni. My safety is not a problem. Situ Xiao was overjoyed. The Wolf King said something to the moon-worshipping wolf tribe and waved his hand, asking them to leave quickly. Then Jiang Tian, accompanied by Situ Xiao and the Wolf King, strode into the sword vault. He's gone in. After Jiang Tian and the other two walked into the sword mound, a figure slowly materialized 20 kilometers away from the sword mound. If Jiang Tian were here, he would definitely recognize that this person was Duke Dracula, who had been intimidated by him in France. Now he was a general under the command of Nie Mingyuan, the Warden of Hell. You'll die if you go in. Another person appeared like a ghost and grinned sinisterly. The sword vault has been modified by our master. Now it's an array within an array. It's very fierce. The divine power break array that can shrink the body and stop all divine powers. The one-day prison array that once trapped a cardinal to death. These formations are embedded with each other, plus the formation of the sword catacomb itself. How can he not die? This person was very handsome and elegant, like an elegant medieval gentleman. However, his face was pale and his eyes were abnormally cold. If the overlords in the underground world saw this, they would be so shocked that their legs would turn to jelly. This person was Cage, one of the 8 blood ancestors of the first generation of vampires. Who would have thought that Cage, the blood ancestor who had been living in seclusion for hundreds of years, would come out and become Nie Mingyuan's accomplice? He was a peerless overlord who was comparable to an earth-level deity and a sage king. Yes, Kong Taichu will definitely die. That cardinal is a sacred master, and is as beautiful as a divine fairy. Dracula cackled. One day in the prison formation, the flow of time is accelerated. One day is equivalent to 10 years. Even if Kong Taichu is a heaven immortal, he will die in just 500 days. Kong Taichu is indeed a once-in-a-century cultivation genius. Blood ancestor Cage sighed with some regret. He's even more talented than Yi Tianren 100 years ago. Unfortunately, he offended our master, the hell-suppressing demon king. Yes, our master is really too strong. Even the 8 most powerful blood ancestors are no match for him. Dracula's voice trembled as a trace of deep fear appeared on his face. The hell-suppressing demon monarch has appeared, and the eternal night is upon us. The blood ancestor's robe flapped in the wind as he spread his arms and shouted excitedly, "Let the world tremble. Let the entire human world submit. This will become our world." After passing through the thin layer of restrictions at the entrance of the Sword Tomb Valley, everyone's eyes instantly lit up. Inside the sword mound, the sun was shining brightly and it was full of vitality. It was as if they had entered another world. And the area seemed to be 100 times larger than before, at least 100 miles in radius. This was too strange. One had to know that from the outside, this place was less than 10 kilometers in radius. Why did it become so big after entering? Moreover, in the forest, tall trees covered the sky and the sun. They were at least 100 meters tall, and their thick trunks required 5 or 6 people to encircle. People were as small as ants under the trees. Such trees were too shocking and were extremely rare outside. On the hillside, the grass was luxuriant, and there was a clear spring flowing over the stones. It was like a paradise. Is this the sword tomb? Situ Zhao's expression changed drastically as he frowned. I came here once before, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't this big. Yes and no. Jiang Tian smiled mysteriously. This was still the sword tomb, but it had been modified by the array formation. After entering, everyone's size had been reduced. Therefore, visually and intuitively, one would feel that the sword tomb had become much larger. Jiang Tian was somewhat shocked. It wasn't because this array formation was bizarre and profound. He didn't know how many of these crude, small-scale space-time arrays he had set up in his previous life, and how many had he broken. It was because he didn't expect such space-time arrays to exist on Earth during the Age of Doom. This must have been left behind by the ancient cultivators, and then moved here by Nie Mingyuan and the others, and merged with the Sword Tomb. Oh my God! What kind of divine grass is this? Why is it so beautiful and crystal clear? Suddenly, Anfia exclaimed, her eyes filled with joy. She found a plant on the hillside. It was half the height of a person, and its branches and leaves were like jasper, and the flowers seemed to be carved out of red agate. It was extraordinary at first glance, and probably priceless. Master Kong, do you want it? Anfia looked at Jiang Tian and asked, if you want it, I'll give it to you. After all, she was too afraid of Jiang Tian's powerful strength. If Jiang Tian wanted to snatch it, no one could stop him. No need. Jiang Tian shook his head gently. These people were going to die anyway, so there was no need for him to accept this favor. Besides, this grand herb wasn't that valuable to him. Since Master Kong doesn't want it, then I won't hold back. Li Jiuyo chuckled when he saw the treasure. Then he reached out to grab the divine herb. This is mine. Anfia was anxious and stepped forward to stop him. She was willing to give it to Jiang Tian, but she might not be willing to give it to Li Jiuyo. You ant, how dare you snatch it from me? Do you want to die? Li Jiuyo slapped her to the ground, then pulled the divine grass up and stuffed it into his backpack. Give it back to me. Anfia was furious and pointed a gun at Li Jiuyo. Are you kidding me? Li Jiuyo said with a mocking face. I'm a peak-stage human deity. Even missiles can't kill me, and you want to kill me with a gun? Are you dreaming? He approached Anfia fiercely and sneered. How dare you threaten me? You really don't know what's good for you. I'll rape and kill you first. Master Kong, this woman is two-faced. She's not a good person. I don't think you'll stop her, right? Jiang Tian didn't care about the dispute between these ants. He didn't even look at them. After all, they were going to die soon. Everyone was angry but didn't dare to say anything. After all, Li Jiuyo was a human deity and was as powerful as the wolf ancestor. Who would dare to stop him? Don't come over. Don't come over. Anfia's face turned pale and she was trembling. She fired a shot in a hurry. A shocking scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. With a bang, Li Jiuyo's head exploded and his headless body fell to the ground. No one dared to believe their eyes. They were all dumbstruck. I actually killed him? Even Anfia was stunned. Li Jiuyo was a human deity from Wuxia. Missiles couldn't kill him. But how could he be killed with just one shot? Master Kong, this is bad. At this moment, Situ Zhao's pupils suddenly shrank. He moved closer to Jiang Tian and said in a trembling voice, I found that I can't use my true qi at all. The same goes for all kinds of arcane arts and dharma spells. Well, it's like this. In this area, the spirit qi of heaven and earth is confined. Cultivators are no different from ordinary people, but after you go out, you can still recover. The problem is that you have to be able to go out alive. Jiang Tian smiled and said. At this moment, all the Russian priests and grand magi also noticed the abnormality. They couldn't use their cultivation. Berezov rolled his eyes a few times and suddenly understood something. Bang! He took out a pistol and fired at several priests and grand magi, turning them into sieves. These people were covered in blood and fell to the ground one after another, dead. Haha, that's great. Berezov laughed hysterically. I didn't expect everyone to become ordinary people here. Where are your abilities? Why don't you use them? Humph. You usually rely on your cultivation to do whatever you want in Russia. Now it's my turn to call the shots. Jiang Tian and the other cultivators actually despised cold weapons. No one brought guns. But Berezov and the other oligarchs and their bodyguards never left their guns. Now that the cultivators' cultivation had been sealed, whoever had the spear would be the king, and whoever had the final say. Berezov grabbed an AK-47 from his subordinate and pointed it at the many cultivators majestically. He roared loudly. Kneel down. Now all of you are my servants and followers, serving me with all your lives. Whoever dares to disobey will be killed immediately. Although the Russian powerhouses were indignant, they had no choice but to lower their heads under the eaves, so they obediently knelt down. Berezov, how dare you point a gun at me? A powerhouse who had awakened his physical body was very unwilling. He glared at Berezov and shouted angrily. Not only can I point a gun at you, but I can also kill you. Berezov shot the powerhouse directly in the head. Brain matter splattered and blood flowed. The powerhouse died on the spot. This time, the remaining powerhouses, including Zhou Zishuan and the others, were so scared that they knelt down in front of Berezov. Some were even worse. They were so loyal that they completely lost their original pride. Awesome. This is awesome. Berezov was complacent. He raised the AK-47 and laughed wildly. He felt that he had reached the peak of his life. These Russian powerhouses all had unfathomable abilities and powerful bloodlines. No one dared to provoke them in the whole of Siberia. Even the oligarchs and the Russian emperor were afraid of them. Now they were all kneeling at his feet. Wasn't it great? Berezov noticed that Jiang Tian, Wolf King, and the other two were indifferent. He frowned. Then he said arrogantly, Mr. Jiang, you saved my life. Mr. Jiang, you once saved my daughter's life. I won't ask you to kneel. Bow to me. This was the state hunter, Jiang Dixian. If he bowed to him, he would be able to show off in the upper-class society. Of course, this grudge was formed. After leaving, Jiang Tian might very well take revenge. Therefore, he had to find a chance to kill Jiang Tian. However, it was inconvenient for him to do it in front of his daughter. He pointed at Wolf King and said fiercely, But Wolf King, you must kneel to me. You have humiliated me too much before. Wolf King was angry, but he didn't dare to refute. His bloodline power was also sealed at the moment. He was completely an ordinary person and couldn't block a bullet at all. You really don't know what's good for you. How dare you ask me to bow to a dying man? Are you worthy? Jiang Tian's face was filled with disdain. Now kowtow to me and admit your mistake. When you are about to die, maybe I will help you. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Chapter 760. What did he say? Everyone thought that Jiang Tian had lost his mind. Yes, Jiang Tian was powerful enough to defeat an earth-level deity. Every move he made had the power to destroy heaven and earth. But now that everyone's cultivation has been sealed, if you fight to the death with them, wouldn't you be courting death? Zhou Zishuan rolled his eyes a few times and slyly advised, Grandmaster Jiang, people have no choice but to lower their heads under someone else's roof. Hurry up and kneel. Don't offend the Honorable Mr. Berezov. Didn't you see what happened to Li Jiuyo? He seemed to be trying to persuade Berezov, but in fact he was trying to show his loyalty to him. Who does he think he is? Does he think he's so great just because he has a gun? Jiang Tian sneered. Who in this world dares to ask me, Kong Teichu, to kneel down? You must be tired of living. This is not like the outside world. Your cultivation is useless. That's right. He's digging his own grave. He's too arrogant. This is the effect of the array of the sword catacomb. Even a sky immortal would not be able to use his cultivation here. Everyone thought that Jiang Tian was too arrogant. Didn't he know that the strong were easily broken? Zhou Zishuan was a human-level deity, but he also knelt down obediently. So what if you kneel down now? A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. As long as you can get out of the sword catacomb safely, you can do whatever you want. Mr. Jiang, how can you talk to my father like that? Seeing that all the powerhouses had surrendered except for Jiang Tian, Amphia was a little annoyed. She sneered. Are you an idiot? Don't you know that cultivators are useless here? You are at the mercy of others. Berezov was also very annoyed. Maybe he was still feeling humiliated because he had kowtowed and bowed his head too many times in this big show. At this moment, he wanted to vent all his depression and resentment, and he wanted to vent it by trampling on these experts that he'd once prostrated himself in worship. Jiang Tian, on the other hand, had undoubtedly interrupted his catharsis. Therefore, he pointed his gun at Jiang Tian and snorted arrogantly. Jiang, you are about to exhaust my patience. If you don't kneel down, I'll kill you with one shot. Human nature is really interesting. Jiang Tian said with a faint smile. Just now, you were kowtowing to me and worshipping me like a god. Now, when you think that you might be stronger than me and can threaten me, you want me to kneel to you immediately. Master Kong, isn't this the rule of your world of the strong? And Fia's pretty face turned cold as she sneered. The strong are respected and the weak are ants. You bully the weak and kill without batting an eyelid. You disregard the rules of the world. The experience on the island had touched her so much that her worldview had collapsed several times. Along the way, she was extremely nervous. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that her mind was severely distorted, and she was about to lose her rationality. She raised her jade-white chin like a high and mighty princess and said proudly, Mr. Jiang, what kind of noble person are you? You said that this place is very dangerous, but everyone can see that this place is peaceful, like a paradise on earth. Where is the danger? As soon as she said this, everyone looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and started discussing. Yes, this place is very good. There are so many treasures. Where is the danger? I thought that there would be monsters and dragons. Who would have thought that there wouldn't even be an ant? Zhou Zixuan added, That's right, Master Kong. I don't want to criticize you, but you are really a little unethical. If you want to monopolize it, just say so. Who would dare to snatch it from you? But what about you? You want to monopolize the resources, and even want to be the good guy. Now everyone can see that you are lying. My father is stronger than you now. So what if he wants you to kneel? And now he just wants you to bow. He is already very merciful. With everyone's support, Amphia became more confident and arrogant. She crossed her arms and mocked with disdain. Master Kong, there is an old saying in Wuxia. A person who can see reality is a hero. Berezov played with the AK-47 in his hand and smiled proudly. You should understand now. You should be aware of the situation now. If you don't kneel down, I will really shoot. Oh, you think that because you have guns, you are strong and I am an ant? Jiang Tian sneered. Is that not the case? Berezov said proudly. Okay, strong. Let's see how strong you are. Jiang Tian suddenly slapped out with his palm. Bam, bam. Berezov's body directly exploded. Countless sparkling and translucent pieces of flesh rained down from the sky. The whole place was silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. The muscles in their eyes twitched crazily as if they had seen a ghost. Jiang Tian was still a dozen meters away from Berezov. Berezov exploded with just a slap. This was clearly using magic or martial arts to kill someone. Even Situ Xiao was shocked and couldn't believe it. Could it be that the restriction here was useless against Master Kong? When everyone realized this, they were scared out of their wits. Jiang Tian's strength was originally higher than everyone's. Now that everyone's cultivation was suppressed, and they were reduced to ordinary people, but Jiang Tian's cultivation was not reduced at all. Wouldn't that mean that they were at the mercy of Jiang Tian? In fact, these restrictions were completely useless to Jiang Tian. He had at least a dozen methods to break them. He could even go out immediately if he wanted to. However, he didn't go out because he had his own plan. He wanted to take advantage of the situation and use this fierce array to sublimate to the extreme, improve his cultivation, and directly build his foundation. Seeing her father turn into a rain of blood, Anfia was dumbfounded. Her face was as pale as paper, and she didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Then she suddenly stomped her feet, pointed at Jiang Tian and shouted angrily, why did you kill my father? He wanted to kill me. Why can't I kill him? The weak should have the self-awareness of the weak. You should be good at using the weak's rules and morals to protect yourself. You even use the rules that are beneficial to the strong to provoke the strong. You are too stupid. Jiang Tian's words fell. Anfia was dumbfounded. Her face flushed red. She was ashamed and angry, but she didn't know what to say. Yes, Berezov had only himself to blame for his death. Berezov was a two-faced and fence-sitter. However, Jiang Tian was not a person who would kill the innocent. From the beginning to the end, he didn't take him seriously and didn't want to kill him. However, he thought that he was smart and thought that the mysterious sword tomb had also sealed Jiang Tian's cultivation. Therefore, he wanted to trample on Jiang Tian and threaten him with his life. Who was Jiang Tian? Hunter Jiang Dixian, the peerless master who once dominated France and forced the European Union to bow their heads. He killed tens of thousands of people at the slightest provocation. Killing him was just like crushing an ant. Princess Anfia, my condolences. Master Kong is too strong. You can't offend him. Berezov's bodyguards next to her were so scared that their faces turned pale. They hurriedly pulled her away and tried to persuade her. No matter how arrogant she was, she would definitely be slapped to death by Master Kong. Master Kang's cultivation wasn't sealed. Bastard. Killing people without saying anything. Why doesn't he just die? Anfia could only walk to the side angrily, silently crying and cursing Jiang Tian in her heart. She couldn't even collect her father's body. The explosion range was at least 100 meters. The flesh particles and body fragments were like grains of rice. How could she collect them? At this time, Jiang Tian glanced at everyone and said disdainfully, "Now, who's the powerhouse and who's the ant? Do you realize that? Why don't I kill a few of you to help you recognize your own strength?" Jiang Tian flicked his finger. With a bang, the body of a Caucasian Grand Warlock exploded into a rain of sparkling flesh. "Master Kong, please forgive us for offending you just now." Everyone was so scared that their faces turned pale, and their bodies trembled, as if they were sifting chaff. Seeing Jiang Tian's cold eyes, these people wanted to slap themselves. They were so regretful that their intestines turned green. They really didn't recognize Mount Tai. They had underestimated Master Kang's strength. How stupid! Grandmaster Jiang was an earth immortal of the present age. He was like a true god that had descended. How could he be judged with common sense? Although the Immortal of Nine Swords was rumored to be powerful, his cultivation might be on par with Master Kang's. Grandmaster Jiang being able to break the restrictions he had set up was only natural. Why hadn't he thought of it? Even if he had this idea, he should have just thought about it secretly. What was there to talk about? If he angered Master Kong, wouldn't it be a dead end for him? Master Kong, please forgive me. My advice just now was completely out of kindness. It was not disrespectful to you. Please be merciful. Don't kill me. Zhou Zixuan moved his knees to Jiang Tian and hugged Jiang Tian's legs. He begged with tears and snot flowing down his face. Get lost. Jiang Tian felt as if a toad was lying on his leg. He was so disgusted that he kicked him. Zhou Zixuan was immediately sent flying. He somersaulted a few times and fell to the ground like a dead dog. You're so weak and spineless. How could you become the leader of Diansong? What a joke. Jiang Tian said disdainfully. Just treat me as a fart and let me go. If you kill me, won't you dirty your hands? Zhou Zixuan was completely scared out of his wits. He almost peed on the spot. He kowtowed again and again. Earth Immortal Jiang, how dare I call myself the leader of Diansong in front of you? I'm just an ant. His face was full of flattery and fawning. He smiled mischievously. Before this, Zhou Zixuan was proud of himself. He was detached from worldly affairs and had the demeanor of a celestial being. He could move freely between heaven and earth without lingering on worldly affairs. He looked down on Bai Tianlei, Hao Hongmei, and Yi Zhantian. He thought that they were all vulgar and intolerable. Their minds were invaded and polluted by worldly affairs. They were not as tough as his Taoist heart. But in front of a real desperate situation, under the threat of death, his mentality completely collapsed. So he showed such a dirty side. In other words, these filth and ugliness were originally hidden in the depths of his heart. At this moment, they were just stimulated and magnified. Cultivation was definitely not about living high in the clouds, hiding in the mountains, staying away from worldly affairs and right and wrong, and pretending to be detached from worldly affairs. Rolling in the mortal world, fighting in adversity, tempering and baptizing in wind and frost, gritting one's teeth, enduring humiliation, struggling and fighting with all one's strength, was the real cultivation. Compared with Jiang Tian, who had been fighting for thousands of years in his previous life, Zhou Zixuan, who had only been to Diansong a few times, had no Taoist heart at all. He hadn't even cultivated for a day. Chapter 761. Jiang Tian couldn't be bothered to look at the crowd. He shook his head and strode toward the depths of the sword catacomb. Master Kong, why don't you kill them all? Wolf King suggested fiercely. He was very angry. The behavior of these people really made him explode. They used to be subservient to Master Kong, but now they were threatening Master Kong. It doesn't matter. They will die soon. Jiang Tian shook his head indifferently. Jiang Tian was not a soft-hearted person, but he couldn't be bothered with those who were about to die. Besides, he could also observe the operation of the array, and the flow of time through the time of their death. The storm soon subsided. Everyone calmed down, and began to move toward the depths of the sword catacomb. Along the way, they found a lot of resources. There were many spirit herbs and grand medicines, such as 100-year-old Ganoderma lucidum, snow lotus, ginseng sealwort. Those herbs were extremely rare in the outside world, but they could be seen everywhere here. They grew crazily like weeds. The most frightening thing was that those herbs were very old. There were a lot of spirit herbs that were 100 years old, a few hundred years old, and even 1,000 years old. Those grand medicines contained surging spirit chi that could easily push an ordinary person to the transcendent grandmaster level. We're rich. They're all grand medicines. I have to break through a few levels this time. Everyone was excited as if they had found a treasure. They scrambled to pick it. Zhou Zixuan and the other overlords swallowed the ginseng as if they were eating radishes. There were so many that they couldn't fit in their bags. At that moment, a few Russian overlords picked a few grand medicines that were as thick as an arm and walked toward the entrance, wanting to transport them out. Jiang Tian was also very excited, but he didn't show it on his face. He didn't even look at sealwort, ginseng, and Ganoderma lucidum. They were of little value to him. The key was that some of the grand medicines had never been found on Earth before. They belonged to the cultivation world, which was why Jiang Tian was interested. Jiang Tian only looked for some herbs that he needed, and put them into the storage ring. This trip was indeed not in vain. Using these spirit grasses and great medicines, Jiang Tian could refine the Scarlet Flame Fortune Pill, and the Foundation Establishment Pill. The Scarlet Flame Fortune Pill could help Jiang Tian break through to the 9th level of Qi refinement. As for the Foundational Pill, of course, it was for breaking through to the foundational level. Several hours later, a few Russian powerhouses who were transporting the medicine outside returned in a panic and said in shock, "We can't get out of the cave." Yeah, even bullets can't break the water wave seal. What's going on? What? We can't get out. Why is it like this? Everyone was in chaos. Amphia laughed disdainfully. So what? Isn't this place pretty good? There are spirit herbs and great medicines everywhere. The scenery is pleasant and peaceful. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Everyone felt that it made sense. The scenery here was very beautiful, just like a paradise on Earth. It would be pretty good to live here for the rest of one's life, without going out. Moreover, according to historical records, the sword catacomb had spirituality. After a period of time, it might open on its own. However, after hearing Amphia's words, everyone despised Jiang Tian even more. They completely regarded Jiang Tian as a selfish villain. That's right, the sword catacomb was a little strange. It could suppress and imprison a cultivator's cultivation, but it wouldn't cause any harm to them. This Earth Immortal Jiang was clearly trying to scare everyone. Of course, no one dared to show this kind of situation. They only secretly complained in their hearts. After all, Jiang Tian could kill them if he wanted to now. Jiang Tian only focused on collecting the herbs he needed, and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her. During the day, Jiang Tian searched the sword catacomb with the others. At night, he sat on the ground with Situ Xiao and Wolf King Mu Tian to teach them cultivation techniques, and help them stabilize their cultivation. Very quickly, Jiang Tian had gathered most of the medicinal herbs he needed. Oh my god, there's a corpse here. Why is it so big? On the 5th day, following a cry of surprise, everyone discovered an ancient battlefield. There were many huge corpses lying around here. Each one was more than 20 meters tall, like the corpses of ancient gods. There were many corpses, overlapping each other. White bones piled up like mountains, giving a huge visual impact. There were many huge treasured swords and armor scattered. Some were even bronze artifacts mottled with rust, full of the aura of time. There were also some artifacts like prayer beads, Buddha tablets, jade talismans, large seals, and so on that were still emitting huge magic power waves. Any one of these artifacts, weapons, and armors would shock the world outside. They were priceless and would attract the pursuit of experts. Many of the weapons were too big for everyone to carry. They could only pick up some short swords and smaller artifacts and put them in their bags. After another low hill, everyone looked into the distance and saw a mountain peak. There were continuous halls on it, majestic and solemn. They were abnormally gorgeous, blooming with rays of multicolored light, as if a palace from the heavens had descended to the mortal world. Too beautiful. This building is simply like the palace of an immortal. I'm never going to leave it again. Heavenly Palace. This must be the Heavenly Palace. The palace where the immortal of 9 swords lives. Many experts cheered in high spirits. So beautiful. Along the way, they had gained so much that Anfia had forgotten the pain of losing her father. She opened her arms and cheered. At this time, a Russian physical awakener suddenly took off his shirt and threw it on the ground, cursing, "Damn! Why is it so hot? And I'm very tired and hungry. I just ate a huge ginseng. It was like a radish. Yeah, I'm also very tired and hungry. I want to sleep, and it's so hot. This is so strange," someone said with a strange expression. At this time, everyone noticed something strange. Their skin was terrifyingly red, as if it were about to drip blood. They all had dark circles under their eyes and their skin seemed a little dry and old. Someone cursed, "Damn it, I can't stand it. I feel like there's a fire burning inside my body." For a moment, the crowd was in chaos. Some said that they couldn't take any more treasures and should return. Some said that there must be more artifacts in the Heavenly Palace. It would be a worthwhile trip if they went to take a look. "It hurts. It hurts so much." Suddenly, the Russian awakened fell to the ground, rolled on the ground, and screamed desperately. "It feels like there's a fire burning inside my body. I can't stand it anymore. Somebody help me." At this time, everyone was shocked to see that his body was red. Blood was oozing out, and his skin was quickly wrinkling. Then the crowd fell to the ground one by one, rolling on the ground, struggling and screaming desperately. The excruciating pain was unbearable. Everyone felt as if they were in purgatory. "I don't want to die. Somebody help me." The Russian awakened who fell first was in his 30s. He was vigorous and intimidating. But at this moment, his black hair was turning white at a speed visible to the naked eye. His bulging muscles were shriveling at a speed visible to the naked eye. His body, which was as straight as a javelin, was bending rapidly. In just a few minutes, he had turned into a white-haired, dying old man. Soon after, a few more people followed suit and died. Then, an even more horrible scene appeared. The corpses quickly decomposed. In less than 10 minutes, they had turned into piles of bones. Why is this happening? At this time, Anfia was also dumbfounded. Her face was as pale as paper, and her legs were trembling. She exclaimed to Jiang Tian, "Mr. Jiang, what's going on?" "What? There's a time acceleration array here," Jiang Tian said indifferently. "In short, the time here is different. To put it simply, the flow of time in the Sword Tomb is different from the outside world. One day here is equivalent to 10 years in the outside world. We have been here for 5 days, which is equivalent to 50 years. How is this possible? A time acceleration array?" Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. It sounded illogical, but what was happening in front of them made them believe it. The people aged rapidly, and the corpses decomposed quickly. What's so strange about this? Jiang Tian said indifferently, "Haven't you heard of the legend that a day in the cave is equivalent to 1,000 years in the world? It was said that during the Jin dynasty, a woodcutter named Wang Ji went to the Stone Room Mountain to chop firewood. He saw 2 boys playing Go, so he sat aside and watched. The boy gave Wang Ji something that looked like a date stone. He put it in his mouth and did not feel hungry. Before the game ended, the boy told him that his axe handle was rotten. With a wave of his hand, Wang Ji left the cave. Wang Ji returned to the village and found out that 1,000 years had passed. Therefore, later generations called the stone room Mountain Lank Mountain, and Lank was another name for Go. According to Jiang Tian's speculation, Wang Ji went to a side world, created by some powerful cultivators. It was outside of the 3 realms and 5 elements. The powerful cultivators could control and slow down time. 1,000 years in the outside world would be equivalent to only 1 day in the stone room. The current sword tomb had also been set up with a similar time array outside. However, this array did the opposite. It sped up time in the sword room. A day in the sword room was equivalent to 10 years in the outside world. This train of thought could be said to be crafty, intending to completely trap Jiang Tian inside, letting him be corroded by time and die of old age. After all, many people speculated that Jiang Tian's cultivation was around the level of an earth immortal. 300 years was his limit. They only needed to trap Jiang Tian for 30 days, and 300 years would have passed. By then, Jiang Tian would have become a pile of bones. When Jiang Tian finished explaining the secret of time acceleration, everyone's faces turned pale. They were in panic and despair. And Fia's face was pale. She knelt down in front of Jiang Tian and begged, "Mr. Jiang, you have a way to get out, don't you? You must be able to stay young, right? I don't want to die here. I still want to live. Master Kong, please help us." At this time, Zhou Zixuan, the head of the Diansong sect, and the others were also lying on the ground. They were being eroded by time. They felt that their auras were declining and their bodies were weak. It was as if they had 1 foot in the grave. Especially for Zhou Zixuan, it was a cruel blow. After he became a man immortal, he returned to his youth. His white hair turned black, his teeth grew new, and his wrinkles disappeared. But now, there were strands of white hair growing out from his black hair, as if it was dyed snow. Deep wrinkles and yellow-brown spots appeared on his tight skin. His teeth shook and fell out. He looked like an old man. Chapter 762. Youth lost again, extended lifespan, and abruptly shortened. Falling from hope to the depths of despair, this was the cruelest blow. His heart was filled with despair, anxiety, and fear. His heart was about to shatter. "You are an expert with unfathomable magic power. You must have a way to help us, right?" At this moment, everyone, including Zhou Zixuan, knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. Tears and snot flowed down their faces as they kowtowed like chickens pecking rice, begging Jiang Tian for help. Every time Zhou Zixuan spoke, a few of his teeth would fly out. After a few sentences, all of his teeth had fallen out. "Oh, now you realize that I'm an expert? Why didn't you listen when I told you before?" Jiang Tian clasped his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with disdain and mockery. "I told you long ago that I wouldn't let you in. But everyone turned a deaf ear to my words. You think I'm scaring you? If I wanted to monopolize these resources, I could just kill all of you. Why would I need to scare you? Ridiculous." Finally, his gaze fell on Anfia as he sneered. "Moreover, you and your father tried to kill me. What reason do I have to save you?" Slap. These words were like an invisible slap on Anfia's face. Her face immediately turned red, as if blood was about to drip out. At this moment, everyone, including Anfia and Zhou Zixuan, felt a deep sense of regret. It was too late for regrets. Yes, Jiang Tian had warned them that this place was dangerous and not to enter. But none of them took it to heart. They only thought that Jiang Tian was scaring them. They were disdainful and insisted on doing what they wanted. If they had listened to Jiang Tian at that time, they would not have lost their lifespan and died an unnatural death later on. They would not have ended up in such a miserable state. What was even more despicable was that, after entering the sword tomb, they accidentally discovered that this place would imprison one's cultivation. Barazov and Amphia actually turned hostile, threatened and humiliated Jiang Tian, and even forced Jiang Tian to kneel. After all, Jiang Tian had once killed the snow devil and saved Amphia's life. Such actions were no different from being ungrateful and repaying kindness with ingratitude. Now, what reason did Jiang Tian have to save them? "Master Kong, forgive me. Save me. I don't want to die." Anfia began to cry in despair. She was as mournful as a malicious spirit, but her cries instantly turned into screams and wails. It hurts. It hurts so much. This was because she felt as if she was being burned by a raging fire. Her entire body was in intense pain, and she was rolling on the ground in pain. Moreover, she was aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. Her youth and vitality were cruelly eroded and stripped away by the accelerated time. In just a few minutes, Amphia, who was full of youthful energy, had turned into an old lady with a head full of white hair. Master Kong, I know I was wrong. Save me. I beg you. I'm willing to give you all of my assets. She lay on the ground, moaning hopelessly and helplessly, wailing and weeping. Aging prematurely and having a head full of white hair was an unbearable sorrow and blow. In her 20s, she was in the prime of her youth. In the blink of an eye, her hair had turned white, and her wrinkles had piled up. Her eyes had also lost their luster, becoming turbid and dull. Let's go. Let's continue forward. Jiang Tian glanced at her indifferently before turning and walking into the depths of the sword catacomb. As for Zhou Zixuan, Jiang Tian couldn't be bothered to care about him. Jiang Tian had originally wanted Zhou Zixuan and Li Jiuyo to live because he felt that these two people had powerful cultivations. When the world changed in the future, they might become the pillars of Wuxia. But ever since they entered the sword catacomb, their selfishness, cruelty, and narrow-mindedness were all exposed. Since they couldn't take on great responsibilities, then he would let them fend for themselves. Sob, sob, sob. Is this our fate? Zhou Zixuan glanced at the corpses all over the ground, fumbled for his fallen teeth and hair on the ground, and hugged his rapidly aging body. Sorrow came from his heart, mixed with regret, and he began to cry loudly. At this time, Jiang Tian had already led Wolf King Alexander and Situ Xiao into the depths of the sword catacomb. Suddenly, a shocking scene came into view. They saw thousands of swords inserted into a mountain peak, extending for more than 10 miles. Each of them was a few meters long, like a forest of swords, completely blocking the way. Each of them had an extraordinary origin. Even after thousands of years of erosion, they were still sharp and cold. There were even Dharma power fluctuations that were comparable to Dharma swords. Big Dipper Sword Formation. Feeling the suppression of the magic power, Situ Xiao found it difficult to breathe. His expression turned serious as he said, "Legend has it that these swords were obtained by the Immortal of 9 Swords when he swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, swept across all the major sects, and suppressed many sword immortals and swordsmen." His eyes became more and more fearful as he said in a low voice, "These swords were carefully arranged into a peerless sword formation, according to the Green Sack Star scripture. 100 years ago, I came with a few immortal state warriors to explore the secret, and 2 of them died here." Hearing this, the Wolf King cried out in alarm. "The person who set up this formation is truly cunning. The sword formation here is already terrifying enough. Now, with the addition of a great forbidden formation and a time acceleration formation, who would be able to resist such a powerful formation? Humph! You want to stop me with a few pieces of scrap metal? In your dreams." Jiang Tian sneered. A gust of wind stirred up and enveloped Wolf King and Situ Xiao completely. As if they were infuriated by Jiang Tian's disdain, all the swords suddenly started trembling madly, and they emitted sorrowful cries of praise. Clang! 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 Countless swords leaped up from the rocks and flew towards Jiang Tian and his people from all directions. This sword formation was more than 10 miles wide, and was arranged according to the Big Dipper Xian formation. It was based on the Green Sack Star scripture and the earth veins and star energy to form a peerless killing formation. Numerous treasured swords flickered with sharp cold light, whistling madly like missiles, crazily encircling and suppressing him. There were too many swords, thousands of them, and they covered the sky. Even if an immortal state warrior or immortal deity were there, they would be cut into pieces. Master Kong, watch out. Situ Xiao was also frightened by the sight of so many sharp swords. Don't worry. Jiang Tian squinted his eyes. Divine light exploded as he threw out a punch. Boom. For this punch, Jiang Tian pushed his cultivation to the limit. The gung metal divine fist transformed into a volcanic eruption-like fist energy that shot out horizontally. Clang! A total of 500 to 600 swords were shattered by Jiang Tian's punch, turning into countless metal shards that shot out in all directions. When Situ Xiao saw this, he was dumbfounded. Master Kang's power was unprecedented. Even the 9-sword immortal might not be able to catch up with him. One of these swords could kill a transcendent grandmaster, or even an immortal state warrior. And yet, Jiang Tian had destroyed hundreds of them with just one punch. How powerful was that? But this sword formation was really too big. The peerless swords with a radius of more than 10 miles immediately pierced towards Jiang Tiandong, even more crazily. This time, the swords were connected head to tail. They were densely packed and stretched for hundreds of meters. They looked like a giant dragon. The treasured sword was like a torrent of steel that lay across the sky. Clanging sounds rang out as it emitted waves of sonic booms and strange howls that caused one's heart to palpitate. Break! 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 Facing this, Jiang Tian's expression remained calm as he repeatedly punched out with his fists. After reaching the 8th level of qi refinement in ancient Wudong, Jiang Tian's punches had the power to destroy cities and mountains. Every time he punched, the swords within a few dozen meters would be destroyed. Punch after punch, the torrent of treasured swords was instantly smashed into pieces. Enough! In the end, Jiang Tian patted the sky-swallowing demon gourd on his waist. Immediately, Xiao Hei's flying sword drew out a sharp and dazzling sword light that was about 500 meters long, forcefully slashing the mountain peak into two. Rumble! Thunderous booms rang out one after another as the entire mountain trembled violently. Countless streams of earth-vein qi gushed out like fire beacons, shooting straight into the sky. Earth-shattering explosions occurred in some places, sending mountain rocks flying and shooting into the heavens. Jiang Tian's sword had cut dozens of meters deep into the array base deep inside the mountain. The surging Dharma power inside the array base exploded uncontrollably. When the array base was destroyed, the swords fell to the ground like dead snakes and lay motionless. The sword array had been completely destroyed. Master Kang's sword penetrated the mountain, and penetrated dozens of meters deep. It's comparable to an underground missile. Wolf King wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said with admiration, "The sword array was really dangerous." He had been invincible all his life, but at this time, he was so scared that he was drenched in cold sweat. If Jiang Tian was not there, even if his cultivation was not sealed, he would not be able to withstand it. "Let's go." Jiang Tian's expression was very calm. It was like he had just done something insignificant. He led the two of them into the air and charged towards the palace. "Master Kong, be careful. There is a 5 elements array ahead." Situ Xiao reminded him again with fear in his eyes. "I was already a half-step human immortal at that time, but I was no match for him. And a human immortal died at that time. Our group stopped here and didn't enter the palace." The immortal of 9 swords was a sky immortal. He had set up the 5 elements array himself, and it was so powerful and dangerous that it could kill earth immortals like killing ants. "Haha, don't worry. He can't even hurt us. He's just showing off in front of an expert." Jiang Tian sneered. By then, he had already sensed the 5 elements array that covered a mile. Yi wood, ding fire, Kuei water, Kuan earth, and X iron metal. These 5 types of energy of heaven and earth were mutually reinforcing and counteracting each other. They cycled endlessly, as if they were a small world. Jiang Tian directly propped up a Gungjin protective shield with a radius of 3 meters, firmly covering the 3 of them, and swaggered into the formation. Whoosh! In the south, the energy of Ding fire was suddenly ignited. The fire rose dozens of meters into the sky and danced like a fiery demon. The energy of Ding fire swept over like a 10-meter-long dragon, and instantly enveloped Jiang Tian and the others. It was thousands of degrees hot, and no one under the immortal state could withstand it. But Jiang Tian's true essence shield only trembled slightly, and didn't even ripple. It easily blocked the energy of Ding fire. The 5 elements array was a half-spiritual array, and had some sensing power. Since the attack was ineffective, the array seemed to be enraged. Thousands of rays of light bloomed and shot into the sky. The attack became more fierce and all kinds of energy burst out toward the 3 of them. Chapter 763. Bang. Bang. But when the wood thorns met Jiang Tian's true essence shield, they immediately shattered. Countless wood chips and fibers flew in the air as energy exploded. Rise! Jiang Tian ignored it and raised his hand to the west. That was where the element metal energy was located. Jiang Tian's element metal divine body was the supreme body of the metal element in the cultivation world. It could control all the metal energy in the world. Suddenly, countless huge golden cauldrons, gold plates, talismans and other element metal array materials rolled into Jiang Tian's hand like a long river. They instantly turned into liquid metal and flowed down. The element metal array was instantly destroyed. The 5 elements coexisted with each other. After the array was destroyed, the other arrays immediately stopped operating, and the light that shot into the sky gradually dimmed. Break! Jiang Tian stomped his feet. Boom! In the earth-shattering sound, smoke and dust billowed and the earth trembled. Huge pits were formed. Countless array materials were trampled and scattered in all directions. The entire 5 elements array was completely destroyed. It was destroyed just like that. Seeing this, Situ Xiao was dumbfounded as if he had seen a god. He was in awe of Jiang Tian, and couldn't be more impressed. The Sword Tomb was one of the most dangerous places in the world. For hundreds of years, the number of immortal state warriors and human immortals who had died here was uncountable. The 5 elements array was the last obstacle to entering the main hall of the Immortal of 9 Swords. It was also the most dangerous array in the Sword Tomb, but it was easily destroyed by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian's strength could be said to be unprecedented. He looked up to him in awe. As for the Wolf King, there was no need to talk about him. He had also explored the Sword Tomb several times, but he had only wandered around the periphery, and had never even gotten close to the 5 elements array. Soon after, under the escort of the 2 of them, Jiang Tian strode to the front of the hall. Sword Deity Palace. The 3 large words were written with iron hooks and silver strokes. They had an extraordinary aura. There was a faint intimidating aura of a saber pressing over, which was a ghastly sight. This should be the dojo of the Immortal 9 Swords, and also the place where he died. Walking into the hall, one could see that the furnishings inside were very simple. There were some stone tables and chairs, as well as a few bookshelves with a few books on them. Moreover, there were vines wriggling in from the outside, wrapping around the bookshelves. They were full of vitality and green. Sigh, it's been too long. The writing has been ruined. Situ Xiao rushed forward excitedly and flipped through the books, but he couldn't help but feel disappointed. This was the dojo of a celestial immortal. The manuals left behind might very well surpass his sword kinesis technique. Unfortunately, these books had already decayed and the words were blurred. It was impossible to read them. Jiang Tian naturally didn't care about these cultivation methods. He passed through the main hall, and arrived at a small quiet room at the back. This quiet room was very inconspicuous. Situ Xiao and the Wolf King were very puzzled. What was Master Kong doing here? However, Jiang Tian discovered that the vines and plants seemed to be growing towards this place like sunflowers. It was very likely that this was the location of the spirit vein. The spiritual qi here is so abundant. There are great herbs growing out of thin air, and magical flowers blooming. After Situ Xiao and the Wolf King followed, they immediately exclaimed repeatedly, and their eyeballs almost popped out. In this quiet room, countless spiritual herbs and great herbs floated without roots and grew crazily. They were green and full of vitality. They emitted tens of thousands of rays of light, and flowed with thousands of auspicious colors. These great herbs seemed to have spirituality as they floated and danced in the air. As soon as they saw Jiang Tian and the others enter, they squeaked and rustled. Some of the great herbs almost took human form. They opened their roots and ran like humans. Some waved their large leaves like butterflies, wanting to fly away. All things have spirits. These spiritual herbs have absorbed the aura of the spirit vein, and are about to become spirits. Jiang Tian sighed leisurely. Xiao Hei's flying sword slashed out, and cut down many spiritual herbs and herbs. He put them into his storage ring as backup for alchemy. To be able to produce so many spiritual herbs and great herbs, there must be a large spirit vein. But where is the source of the spiritual qi? Where's the spirit vein? Situ Xiao asked in surprise. He felt around and searched everywhere with his spiritual power, but he found nothing. There were many rumors about the hidden treasures of the sword tomb. However, the most attractive thing was that there was a super spirit vein here, which was greatly beneficial to one's cultivation. Don't worry. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense, then raised his right hand and drew talismans in the air. Pa. Numerous gung gold talisman markings formed a talisman that glowed with golden light, and with a tap of Jiang Tian's finger, it struck the ground. The talismans spread out on the green bricks on the ground. Suddenly, there was a dazzling brilliance, illuminating the entire quiet room. Then the broken talismans flowed everywhere like mercury and golden water, filling the gaps between the square bricks. The golden water from the talismans was like a small stream, but it flowed extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it filled all the gaps between the bricks. Suddenly, the bricks seemed to be alive. They folded, rolled, stacked, contracted, and nested. It could be said that there were thousands of changes in an instant, which was dazzling. In an instant, these green bricks suddenly formed a pool with a radius of more than 3 meters. This is a concealment formation. This concealment formation is too ingenious. Situ Xiao and the Wolf King were shocked and dumbfounded. Previously, when they knocked on the ground to check, they only felt that these square bricks were no different from normal. The Wolf King even waved its big claws and pried out 2 pieces. It saw that there was only black soil and stone underneath, and there was nothing unusual. If Jiang Tian was not here, even if they came here, they would not be able to detect and break this concealment formation. They could only return empty-handed. The pool was connected to a passage. It was bottomless and dark, as if it led to hell. All of a sudden, a milky white liquid gushed out of the tunnel. The milky white water splashed everywhere, like pearls of various sizes falling on a jade plate. In the blink of an eye, the pool was filled to the brim like milk. This is spirit qi. Spirit liquid? But how can there be such a turbid spirit liquid in the world? Situ Xiao could not believe it. Spirit qi of heaven and earth had many levels. The regular spirit qi was in a gaseous state. The denser and purer spirit qi turned into mist or rain, which was generally called spirit liquid. However, he had never seen such a spirit liquid. There seemed to be a lot of flocculence floating in it, and it was very turbid. Spirit marrow. Jiang Tian's heart raced. Spirit marrow was the essence of spirit liquid. Usually it was an underground spirit spring. After being compressed by mountains and geological changes, it formed a solid liquid mixture. Generally speaking, spirit marrow had 100 times more spirit qi than the spirit spring of the same volume. It was rare even in the cultivation world outside the planet. Who would have thought that it would appear on Earth? But then again, it was not surprising. On Earth, even if it was a dead planet, even if it lacked spirit qi and the probability of a spirit marrow vein appearing was very low, it was still more than 500 million square kilometers. It was quite possible to have 1 or 2 spirit marrow veins. The Immortal of 9 Swords was rumored to be a sky immortal, equivalent to a 3rd-level foundation establishment cultivator. His senses and speed were comparable to Jiang Tian's. According to historical records, he had lived on Earth for a few hundred years. Wouldn't he have turned the planet upside down? He would definitely find it. At this time, Jiang Tian was overjoyed. The spirit vein in the ancient Wudong sect, and the dragon marrow spirit vein in the Shuangqing villa in fragrant hills of Yanjin, were far inferior to this spirit marrow vein. However, both of those spirit veins had helped Jiang Tian make breakthroughs once. Thinking about it, this 10 times purer spirit marrow meridian, together with the pills that Jiang Tian concocted, could definitely push Jiang Tian to Qi Disciple Level 9, or even break through to Foundation Establishment. Jiang Tian was about to start making pills and cultivating. Suddenly, a voice sounded. "Young man, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Everyone was startled. They turned around and saw a figure appear at the door. The person was dressed like a Taoist, wearing a feather robe and a high crown. He looked very lively and lifelike. Oh my God, is the Immortal of 9 Swords still alive? Wolf King was startled when he saw that. Situ Zhao's body was also tense and his eyes were filled with fear. There seemed to be endless time flowing in his eyes, the rise and fall of countless civilizations and the twinkling stars. It was as if people would fall into his eyes and be unable to extricate themselves. The array left by the Immortal of Nine Swords had killed a mortal deity before. Who would be able to resist him? No. This is the remnant soul of the Immortal of Nine Swords. To be more precise, it's an illusion created by combining part of his remnant soul with the array. It's like a holographic projection. Jiang Tian's face was calm as he smiled. I see. It's so real. It's amazing. Wolf King immediately felt relieved and found it interesting, so he went forward and pulled Chen Fan's beard. Don't move. Jiang Tian wanted to stop him, but he didn't have time. He could only shake his head. Bang. There was a muffled sound. The Immortal of Nine Swords casually waved his hand and sent the Wolf King flying out of the window more than 10 meters away. Young man, how dare you be disrespectful to me? Do you want to die? The Immortal of Nine Swords raised his hand and pointed, shouting majestically. Master Kong, isn't this a holographic projection? How can it hit me? Wolf King's chest was in great pain, and his waist was almost broken. He screamed and asked. This is called realistic illusion. It has intelligence and energy waves. Why did you do that? Jiang Tian heaved a sigh. Master Kong, you're wrong. It should be called artificial intelligence, not holographic projection. Wolf King rubbed his chest and got up. Then the Immortal of Nine Swords said kindly, Kid, you were able to break through the layers of illusions and defeat the layers of restrictions to arrive here. It can be seen that your natural talent, willpower, and comprehension ability aren't bad, and you can inherit my mantle. Kneel and kowtow to me and beg me to take you as my disciple. Kneel? Do you know who I am? You're asking me to kneel? Jiang Tian sneered. I'm a Foundation Establishment cultivator from the ruins of deity. Aren't you afraid of me? The Immortal of Nine Swords shouted. At this moment, he was glaring coldly at Situ Xiao. Even Situ Xiao could feel an enormous pressure. Of course I am. Jiang Tian smacked on the head. He slapped the Immortal of Nine Swords' head. This illusion instantly turned into billions of light spots, and was shattered by Jiang Tian's slap. The azure light spots emitted a soft light like fireflies and floated in the air. A moment later, the light spots moved and the illusion was formed again. But at this time, the illusion kept flickering, appearing and disappearing in a translucent state. Its aura was obviously much weaker than before. The illusionary figure pointed at Jiang Tian and shouted angrily, I am a guest from the ruins of immortality. I am at the 3rd level of Foundation Establishment. I can break mountains with a single sword and destroy cities with a single finger. I once killed the sacred battle ape, Qi Ao Sheng, and the evil dragon, Ao Bao. I am invincible in this world. Zhang Samfeng and Huang Chao's martial arts and sword techniques were all taught by me. How dare you hit me? You must have a death wish. Chapter 764. What's wrong with hitting you? Give me your cultivation method. Jiang Tian slapped him again. Smack. The illusion of the deity of Nine Swords shattered again. A moment later, the illusion condensed again, but this time, the face of the illusion was full of fear, and it said, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Judging by your aura, you're a cultivator, not a martial artist or sorcerer. He swung his sleeves and became arrogant again. You must also be from the ruins of immortality. You must have been punished and exiled. How about we call each other brothers? Do you think you're worthy of being my brother? Jiang Tian sneered and slapped him again. Smack. The deity of Nine Swords shattered again. When he reformed, he was no longer arrogant. He bowed deeply and said, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. I didn't expect your excellency's cultivation to be so powerful. I apologize for my lack of respect. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll tell you everything I know. What's the ruins of immortality? Where is it? How do I get there? The moment Jiang Tian said this, Situ Xiao hurriedly perked up his ears to listen. He had also heard about the secrets of the ruins of immortality, and was very interested. The ruins of immortality was born from the spirit chi of ancient earth. There were billions of territories, thousands of races, and countless powerful cultivators. The deity of nine swords smiled bitterly and said, I was a disciple of the outer court. I was originally an outer sect elder of the heavenly court sect. Because I accidentally broke the Lord of the Heavenly Court's colored glaze cup and violated the heavenly law, I was expelled from the heavenly court and sent to this world through the dimensional passage. I killed monsters and wiped out demons on Earth, hoping to make up for my mistakes and get the sect master's permission to return to the heavenly court in the ruins of immortality. I made 9 flying swords and was invincible in the 9 heavens and 10 lands. I made outstanding achievements. He talked about his great achievements all those years ago, and his saliva splattered everywhere while his gaze was arrogant and proud. Jiang Tian couldn't stop him. It seemed that the deity of 9 swords was also a braggart when he was alive. In the end, he changed the topic. But unexpectedly, the southern heavenly gate's formation collapsed, the bridge of immortals was broken, and the path to heaven was damaged. The world became like a cage. This one cannot return to the ruins of immortality. My lifespan is nearing its end, and I will perish here. What a pity. As he finished speaking, he stomped his feet and pounded his chest while tears and mucus flowed down his face. Every single word he spoke was filled with grief, and it caused Situ Xiao to be deeply moved. So the heavenly court really does exist. It's in the ruins of immortality. The southern heavenly gate is actually a teleportation formation. Jiang Tian had a slight understanding in his heart. The southern gate of heaven should be a teleportation array left behind by the overlords of the ancient Earth. However, Earth had been in decline for too long, and the teleportation array had been eroded by wind and rain for tens of thousands of years, and had long been destroyed. Even with the 9 swords immortal's abilities, he was unable to repair it. Jiang Tian asked about a few more secrets of the ruins of immortality, including the location of the southern heavenly gate. However, the illusion of the immortal 9 swords did not respond. Instead, it gradually dimmed. In fact, the Wolf King was right. It would be more appropriate to call this illusion an artificial intelligence in the cultivation world. The questions that it could answer were all set in advance. If there were no set answers, asking questions would be useless. Now, show me the ultimate skill that you're most proficient in, Jiang Tian said in a commanding tone, not wasting any time. I cultivate the 5 elements heaven-seizing Dharma sword, which was once invincible in the world. Now I'll teach it to you. You must remember it in your heart. Nothing is as big as heaven and earth, but it has its limits. Yin and yang are limited in the vastness of the heavens. Yin and yang are limited in the vastness of the earth. A sword appeared in the illusion's hand out of thin air. He explained as he demonstrated the sword technique. Sometimes, the tip of his sword pointed upward like a golden lotus. Sometimes, sword light bloomed like rain hitting banana leaves. Sometimes, sword flowers bloomed like flowers falling from the sky. The tip of the sword stabbed forward, and the sword light was biting cold, like a thunderbolt striking down. There's actually such a magical sword technique in the world. Situ Zhao's heart was immediately shaken. His eyes were burning, and his breathing quickened. He was like a money grubber who saw gold ingots, or a pervert who saw a stunning beauty. This sword technique was infinitely profound, far surpassing the sword kinesis technique he had obtained at the Jialing River. After all, this was a technique from the ruins of immortality. A true sword immortal technique that could lead one to the celestial immortal realm. Once word got out, many experts above the immortal state would probably beat their brains out. However, Situ Xiao knew that this sword technique should belong to Jiang Tian. After all, Jiang Tian was the one who opened the sword tomb, so he should avoid it. Master Kong, I'll go outside to enjoy the scenery. Situ Xiao made up his mind and bowed deeply with his fists clasped. Then he reluctantly turned around and walked out of the door. Situ learned this sword technique well. Jiang Tian hurriedly raised his hand to stop him. He also used his spiritual power to imprint the essence of the sword technique into Situ Zhao's mind. Master Kong, no master, actually taught me this sword technique? In an instant, Situ Xiao was so moved that tears filled his eyes. He couldn't believe it. It's just a third-rate sword technique. What's so great about it? Jiang Tian snorted disdainfully. Such a sword technique, to Situ Shao and the other earth powerhouses, was definitely priceless and regarded as a treasure. However, it was nothing in Jiang Tian's eyes. He could write a few hundred of them. Little Shao will never forget Master's great kindness. From today onwards, I will definitely serve Grandmaster Jiang loyally and treat him as my second parent. Situ Shao was moved to tears as he knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. He prostrated himself on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. This is nothing. This sword technique can be the foundation of your cultivation. After you have laid the foundation, I will teach you the real divine art. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and said, From now on, you will be the most senior disciple of the Tai Ching sect, second only to me. The Hong sect was more powerful than the Big Circle. They had many powerful overlords and were extremely influential. If the Hong sect submitted to the Jiang family, Jiang Tianqing's faction would become the most powerful faction in the world, and no other faction would be able to compete with them. Yes, Master. No, sect leader. Situ Shao was sincerely convinced, and he was even unable to contain his joy. Jiang Tian was the reincarnation of an immortal. He had lived for a very long time in his past life, and his cultivation was unfathomable. To be able to become Jiang Tian's most senior disciple meant that he was an immortal. With Jiang Tian's guidance, he would be able to ascend to the immortal ruins and reach a higher level of life. This was a blessing that he had accumulated over several lifetimes. He no longer had to worry about his lifespan coming to an end, not knowing when he would die. After a while, Jiang Tian imprinted the 5 elements heaven-seizing Dharma sword technique into Situ Zhao's mind. The divine soul of the 9 swords deity had also run out of energy. Suddenly, it collapsed and disappeared as if it had never existed. Jiang Tian was not going to leave empty-handed. He searched the sword deity's palace for a while and took everything he could find. Finally, Jiang Tian sat cross-legged in the middle of the spirit pith and spirit vein. He waved his sleeves and his eyes lit up. Situ, Wolf King, I need you to help me with the alchemy. I need to go into seclusion for a while. Jiang Tian was going to use the time acceleration array. Others thought that they could trap him to death, but in Jiang Tian's eyes, it was extremely useful, a great opportunity bestowed by the heavens. The divine body of gung metal was the most powerful body constitution in the cultivation realm. It was 10 times stronger and 100 times purer than the average body constitution. However, it was also one of the most difficult body constitutions to cultivate. Just like how fine steel had to go through many layers of forging, and the edge of a treasured sword had to be sharpened many times, the foundation of the gung metal divine body also required a long period of cultivation. With Jiang Tian's experience, if it was an average body constitution, it would only take half a month to advance from the 8th level of Qi refinement to the foundation establishment realm. However, it was too difficult for the divine body of gung metal to break through to the foundation establishment realm, especially from the 9th level of Qi refinement. Every time he made a breakthrough, it would take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or even longer. It was hard to say. 20 years, 30 years on Earth was a very long time. However, it was not considered long in the cultivation realm. In the cultivation realm, many cultivators, especially high-level cultivators, would enter seclusion for 200 or 300 years. Even for the average body constitution, 20 or 30 years of seclusion was not considered long to reach the foundation establishment realm from the Qi refinement realm. After all, going from the 9th level of Qi refinement to the foundation establishment realm was a huge leap. To condense a Dao foundation, one had to transform one C of Qi into a golden core field as the foundation for condensing a golden core. Of course, once the divine body of gung metal reached the foundation establishment realm, one's strength would increase greatly, be it one's cultivation, divine powers, body constitution, or consciousness, they would all become unimaginably powerful. To put it simply, one would be invincible among the same level. A first-level divine body of gung metal could instantly kill a 9th-level foundation establishment cultivator with an average body constitution. Only when one met a golden core cultivator would one need to avoid them. According to Jiang Tian's deduction, The legendary Sky Immortals and Holy Venerables on Earth were actually equivalent to a third-level Foundation establishment cultivator. If Jiang Tian encountered a Sky Immortal or Holy Venerate, he could kill them easily. Originally, when Jiang Tian cultivated the divine body of Gung metal, it would take him 30 years or even longer to break through from the 8th level of Qi refinement to the Foundation establishment realm. However, with this time acceleration array, it was different. It would greatly shorten the time. Even if he cultivated here for 100 years, only 100 days would have passed in the outside world. Yes, it is our honor to serve Master. The Wolf King and Situ Zhao's expressions froze as they hurriedly bowed. While Jiang Tian was refining pills and cultivating in the Sword Catacomb, in the outside world, a storm was brewing once more, and it was in complete chaos. Time passed quickly. 5 days, 10 days, 30 days. Ever since Jiang Tian stepped into the Sword Catacomb, he had not come out. Many people suspected that Jiang Tian had died there. After all, it was said that there were many deadly arrays there. Many immortal state warriors had died there before. Someone saw a blood qi rising 300 meters from an ancient castle in Northern Ireland and enveloping half of the town. The European cultivation world was shocked. The hand of death, blood ancestor, Ali, had been born. This blood ancestor, Ali, was one of the 8 blood ancestors. In the Middle Ages, when technology was not yet advanced, he had once devoured an entire city of living beings. He drank human blood and ate human flesh for food. His lifespan was unimaginably long. Then in Mongolia, someone took a picture of a haggard old man wearing a sheepskin coat. He walked out with a walking stick and crossed a 300-meter-tall mountain in one step. According to the old herdsman, the old man in the sheepskin coat had lived in the forest since he was very young. He was now 80 years old, but he was still very healthy. He was like a god. It's the wolf ancestor of the grassland, Garg, an overlord from the Middle Ages. He should be 500 years old. An overlord of the dark world analyzed the old man's background from videos and historical records. He was so shocked that his hands were shaking. Chapter 765. He used to be a close friend of Huang Taiji and Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang. He was also the state preceptor of the Jin dynasty. In terms of seniority and strength, even the Ice Plains wolf ancestor was his disciple. This was too shocking. An old monster with a lifespan of almost 500 years was still alive, and he was not weak at all. Kong Teichu is dead. These old monsters can't sit still anymore. They want to conquer the world and take control of the secular countries. Some overlords posted on the dark net excitedly. Following that, more strange phenomena appeared. Some people saw a huge tsunami erupting in the Bermuda Triangle. Hurricanes and cyclones rose into the sky. Several large scientific research ships of the United States were swallowed by the waves, but a man covered in seaweed walked on the waves and lifted the sinking ships of 10,000 tons one after another. After the news broke out, some UFO enthusiasts claimed that the UFO was left behind by an alien civilization, and that the technology of the United States came from them. Then, the Golden Temple in Mexico, which was the site of the Mayan civilization, had many believers. In the Golden Temple, a crystal head worshipped by the believers suddenly shone brightly. The golden statue suddenly opened its eyes and moved its eyeballs. Then the entire temple let out cries and howls. It was said that tens of thousands of believers gathered and prayed that day. The God King has come out of seclusion. During this period, all kinds of anomalies appeared in Europe, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and India. Many netizens posted videos and comments on the dark net, claiming that they had seen a real god. Ever since Jiang Tian defeated France, news about Sidoni and other gods had been spreading non-stop. Although the information management departments of the major countries were on guard and deleting posts crazily, there were still all kinds of secret forums. For example, the Supers Forum, Marvel Comics, Oriental Mythology, Werewolf Home, Alchemy Research Forum, and so on. Most of these videos and news appeared on these forums first before spreading to the dark net. Other than the person who posted it, these videos and news were thought to be fake legends or funny special effects videos. They just laughed and passed by. However, for the real overlords of the dark net, it was no less shocking than a nuclear explosion. Stepwolf ancestor, blood ancestor, sea god tribe, Mayan descendant, Tai King Gong Tao. Every day, someone would refresh the list of new experts. Most of these experts had surpassed the immortal state. Some of them were even human immortals or earth immortals. There were also some fake news, but it was immediately removed by insiders. However, there were some experts who did exist, and their battle records were glorious. What's wrong with this world? There are actually so many experts in the divine realm, and those beyond the divine realm. There were experts who cried out in alarm. They felt as if the world was changing, as if a storm was about to arrive. It made them feel uneasy. They are after Kong Techu's Sidoni, a wise man analyzed. Those overlords above the immortal state level have been hiding for too long, and their living space has been restricted by the superpowers. You have to understand that they were originally experts who controlled countries and sections. How could they be willing to accept this? On the other hand, Kong Techu controlled the United States Congress, defeated France, suppressed the European Union, and controlled Sidoni. He was on par with the leaders of the superpowers in the world. Who wouldn't envy him? Since these countries can tolerate the existence of Kong Techu and Sidoni, their bottom line is clear. The overlords are likely to occupy Sidoni and turn Sidoni into a habitat for human overlords. Would the superpowers in the world want to see these overlords? A puzzled expert asked. You have to know that the United States of America hunted down immortal state warriors all over the world in the 1950s and 1960s. They will threaten the status of the superpowers in the world and shake the foundation of society, based on technology and market economy. The current situation is that the superpowers and the super overlords are using each other to get rid of Kong Techu first. The wise man continued his analysis. The first step is to crush the remaining forces of Kong Techu. They might be the superpowers or the super overlords and occupy Sidoni. The second step is to wage war between the super overlords and the superpowers in the world. One side will enslave or destroy the other. Wouldn't Kong Techu and Sidoni become the targets of the overlords in the world? Many overlords gasped. Haha, I think it's just a pipe dream. Kong Techu has never lost a battle since his debut. He even crushed the superpowers in the world. Who would dare to provoke him? Someone argued and listed Jiang Tian's valiant achievements. That's right. Kong Techu is invincible. Whoever dares to provoke Kong Techu will die. My blade is thirsty again. Big Blade Brother, a diehard fan, cheered for Jiang Tian again. But then, an earth-shattering message resounded across the entire deep web forum like a clap of thunder. Don't you know that Kong Techu has died in the Sword Tomb? Hearing this, immediately, there were curses and taunts. Get the hell out of my way of thinking. Are you a clown brought here by a monkey? Kong Techu had surpassed the immortal state, and was an earth-level deity. How could he die? TSK, some weaklings are like this. They're jealous of others because of their low level of cultivation. But they don't dare to provoke others, so they curse others behind their backs. 80% of the users on the Deep Web forum were Jiang Tian's loyal fans. Who wouldn't be angry after seeing such comments? But the Blood Drinker Overlord wasn't angry at all, nor did he refute or respond. When everyone was done, he said, "Have you heard of the one-day imprisonment array? Our master, the Jinyu Demon King, has set up a one-day imprisonment array outside the Sword Tomb, and Kong Techu has been in there for more than 20 days. That's equivalent to more than 200 years. More than 200 years. Even if he's an Earth-level deity, he should have reached the end of his life by now. If he's still alive, he must have found a way to get out. But he hasn't done anything yet. He's either dead or has found a way to get out. Who is the Blood Drinker? Is what he said true? What exactly is the one-day imprisonment array? Many overlords asked in fear. But slowly, the identity of the Blood Drinker and the information about the one-day imprisonment array were dug up. The Blood Drinker should be the famous Duke Dracula. And the one-day imprisonment array was the masterpiece of Ali, one of the 8 blood ancestors. In the Middle Ages, he had once used this formation to trap a red-robed cardinal to death. When all this information was presented in front of everyone, the deep web forum was dead silent. Everyone felt their blood run cold, unable to utter a single word. It's possible that Jiang Taichu has really died. After a long while, someone finally spoke up in a trembling voice. This news spread like wildfire and gradually spread. And then, another piece of news was earth-shattering. It was like a stone that set off 1,000 ripples, causing an uproar in the dark world. The Dark Council was born. The werewolves, bloodbreeds, grand wizards, shamans, and other dark overlords had formed an alliance. They declared that they would protect the secular order of Europe and wage war against Kang Taichu's henchmen. They wanted to wipe out Sidonie. At the founding meeting, European Union President Jung, Russia's great Emperor Putin, and other dignitaries came to congratulate them. They also drank and chatted with the wolf ancestor of the grassland, Garg, and blood ancestor Ali. At the gathering, blood ancestor Ali wore a woolen suit, an antique gold pocket watch, and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He looked like a gentleman. In front of many European royalty and nobles, he held a glass of red wine and spoke into the microphone. I'm still a part of the earth. I don't want to see people die. I don't want to see the flames of war. Since the rise of Kang Taichu, he has been killing people and stirring up territorial disputes and local wars. Sidonie has become the most unstable factor in the world. He spoke in a standard London accent as if he was reciting a sonnet. I'm willing to contribute to the safety of the earth and world peace. The Dark Council has been reactivated and many dark overlords have reached an agreement to suppress Sidonie. Here, we advise the people of Sidonie not to be stubborn. For world peace, expel the Tianqing school and Kang Taichu's henchmen. Mr. Ali, thank you for your righteous actions. The people of Europe will remember your kindness. In front of the camera, European Union President Jung and the great Emperor of Russia raised their glasses and bowed to the blood ancestor. This news was only released to the dark world. The dark net and many other overlords received the news. Many people were shocked and couldn't believe it. Aren't the blood ancestor and the steppe wolf ancestor the enemies of the European Union and the superpowers? Why are they working together? Someone exclaimed on the Darknet forum. This is hilarious. The blood ancestor and the steppe wolf ancestor have killed thousands of people, fed on human flesh and drank blood. Now they want to protect the peace of the earth and the safety of mankind. This is hilarious. Some overlords sneered. You don't know. The Holy See, which has a close relationship with the royal family, the Dark Council, which represents the super overlords, and the secular regime, which represents the bourgeoisie. There are three forces in the first place. A wise person spoke and pointed out the puzzle for everyone. Since World War I, the secular regime and the Holy See worked together to kill and expel the Dark Council, but that doesn't mean that the secular regime doesn't hate and be wary of the Holy See. The Holy See and the secular regime were originally in a competitive relationship. The Holy See is close to the royal family and controls the faith of the European people. It's possible for them to overthrow the secular regime. You should know that in the Middle Ages, almost every royal family had to obey the orders of the Holy See because the monarchy was given by God. Now the capitalist revolution has been successful and capitalist countries have been established. They are free from the control of the royal family and the Holy See. How can they repeat the same mistake? Now, if the European Union uses the power of the Holy See, it's very likely that it will cause the Holy See and the royal family to grow stronger and weaken the secular regime. So it's obviously more rational and reliable for them to choose the Dark Council. Then someone asked. The Dark Council once collapsed because of the power struggle between the werewolves and the bloodbreeds. Why did it reappear? Also, the steppe wolf ancestor and the blood ancestor are only executive speakers. So, who is the president of the Dark Council? Chapter 766. This was also the concern of many overlords. The reason why the Covenant of Darkness disappeared was not only because of the secular political system, the rapid development of technology, and the suppression of the Holy See, but also because of the constant internal conflicts. Since the beginning of the Middle Ages, the blood-breeds and the werewolves had been mortal enemies for hundreds of years. Now, they had actually shaken hands and formed the Covenant of Darkness. A true overlord has appeared. He's called the Demon King of Hell, and he's from Wuxia. Someone in the know revealed. His momentum is even fiercer than Kong Teichu's. He once fought 6 European countries in one night, and forced the 8 Duke-level blood breeds to bow their heads. He once defeated 3 first-generation vampires in a row. His strength is earth-shattering. In Europe, countless overlords have fallen in his hands. 100 years ago, the demon hunter Van Helsing of the power rankings, the #1 alchemist in England, Kira, and 2 main deities of the 12 main deities of the Pantheon, Artemis and Poseidon, were all killed by him with a raise of his hand. Also, he defeated the wolf ancestor of the grassland, and took over the moon-worshipping wolf clan, and the grassland wolf clan. Many Caucasian shamans and priests were no match for him, and became his subordinates. Not only is he powerful, but more importantly, he has the secret of immortality and can infinitely increase their lifespan. So many overlords of the dark world submitted to him and jointly elected him as the president of the Covenant of Darkness. When these results were announced, the entire dark world was dead silent. All the overlords were dumbfounded and couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a ghost. Such results were too glorious. He wasn't inferior to Jiang Tian. Blood ancestor Ali had once killed the Red Bishop and the Lord of the Holy Sea. His strength was equivalent to an Eastern Sky Immortal, at least a level. But blood ancestor Ali was still defeated by this person, which showed that his strength was at least comparable to Sky Immortals and Lords. Everyone was dumbfounded. Then they exclaimed, "He's from Wuxia like Kong Teichu. What's his name?" Nie Mingyuan. On this day, the name Demon King of Hell, Nie Mingyuan, appeared out of nowhere and shocked the world of overlords. Some people thought that he was an expert who was on par with Jiang Tian. They were like 2 constellations that shone brightly in the sky. Some people regarded him as Jiang Tian's replacement. They thought that he would replace and crush Jiang Tian to become the new master of Sidoni. Outside, a storm was brewing. In the Sword Tomb, Jiang Tian had already completed the refinement of the Scarlet Flame Good Fortune Pill. Moreover, the refinement of the Building Foundation Pill had also reached the final juncture. Dragon Grass, Red Blood Vine, Flame Spirit Crystal, Vein Opening Flower. Within the 5-element pill refinement cauldron, great herbs were like clouds and spirit energy was like an ocean, seething and roiling without end as numerous strands of dense spirit energy seeped out. These spiritual herbs were all from the Sword Tomb, and they were originally thousands of years old. Now, after a day of being catalyzed by the prism formation, it was even more mature. It contained an incomparably dense amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi, and its medicinal efficacy was surging. Fortunately, the Immortal of 9 Swords came from the ruins of immortality, and brought some great herbs and seeds with him. He also spent hundreds of years on Earth to collect and cultivate all kinds of medicinal herbs. Otherwise, with just Jiang Tian's collection and cultivation on Earth, it would probably take 10 years of hard work to collect all of them. Whoosh! The 5-element pill refinement cauldron revolved. As the Wolf King threw one crystal after another into it, blue flames flickered. These crystals were called Flame Essence Crystals. They were plundered by Jiang Tian when he massacred the treasures of the French blood god, Martel. These crystals could erupt with flame essence comparable to Li fire and true Samadhi fire. They could extract the essence of medicinal herbs to the greatest extent. Increase the firepower. Increase the true chi by 10%. Jiang Tian's eyes were deep, and his divine sense was pervasive in probing the subtle changes of each medicinal herb. Yes, master. On the side, Situ Shao heard this and slowly pushed his right hand forward like a claw. Suddenly, a burst of true chi erupted from his palm, and rushed into the cauldron's vent. Boom! The flames suddenly became a bit stronger, and the temperature rose to a subtle degree. If any overlord from the dark world saw this, they would be shocked. Jiang Tian's alchemy was extravagant this time. Situ Shao, the founder of the Hong sect, and Alexander, the moon-worshipping Wolf King, held the charcoal in his hand. Suddenly, the cauldron shook violently as if it was about to explode. "Master, what is it?" Situ Shao and the Wolf King exclaimed. Don't worry, the foundation establishment pill is almost done. Jiang Tian's face was calm. He formed a hand seal and infused the cauldron with his Dharma power. Boom. Boom. The cauldron shook even more violently. It was as if a prehistoric beast was trying to break free from its shackles. Master, is this still a pill? Even Situ Xiao was shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief. Situ Xiao was an earth-level deity who had lived for 300 years. He was the leader of the Hong sect, and he had seen all kinds of pills. However, this was the first time he had seen such a powerful pill. It was so powerful that it felt as if the pill was alive. Of course, the Foundation Establishment pill is a superior grade spirit pill. Of course, it has a hint of spirituality. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and slapped the lid of the cauldron. Boom. The lid flew out of the cauldron, and a few Foundation Establishment pills flew into the air. However, Jiang Tian stopped them with his arcane art. Above the dozens of pills, there was dense spiritual energy, floating indeterminately, like a colorful haze. Not bad. Jiang Tian's eyes lit up with joy. The 13 Scarlet Flame Fortune pills that I refined before, the Moon Spirit pill that I refined for the Wolf King, and the Blood Concealing Divine pill that I refined for Situ Xiao are all mid-grade spirit medicines. Master, I will never forget your kindness in giving me these pills. Situ Xiao and the Wolf King kowtowed to Chen Fan with tears of gratitude in their eyes. The two of them had been able to stay in the sword vault for so long because Jiang Tian had given them very good pills and taught them how to refine them. Therefore, after spending such a long time in the sword vault, not only did their lifespan not decrease, but their cultivation had also become stronger. The Wolf King's original combat strength was not at the human immortal stage. However, he was now at the peak of the human immortal stage, and was 10 times stronger than the Icefield Wolf ancestor. As for Situ Xiao's cultivation, after taking the pills given by Jiang Tian, it had become even more unfathomable. Moreover, he had gradually mastered the 5 elements heaven-seizing magic sword, and had reached the peak of the earth immortal stage. He was showing signs of breaking through to the sky immortal stage. Once he became a sky immortal, he would have a lifespan of 500 years, or even 1,000 years. How could Situ Xiao, who was at the end of his lifespan, not be happy and grateful? One had to know that he had chosen to stop his lifespan because his lifespan was almost up, and he needed to hibernate, to wait for an opportunity. The reason why he had risked his life to fight Jiang Tian was that he wanted to become a sky immortal and break through the shackles of his lifespan. The Foundation Establishment pills that I have refined this time are supreme grade pills. Even in the cultivation world, they are very good. Jiang Tian waved his hand and looked at the pills attentively. He continued with a sigh. He said with emotion, "This is because although it seems to only take a few hours to refine these pills, it is equivalent to dozens of days in the outside world. Dozens of days of painstaking effort. Of course, it is much better than ordinary pills." At this time, the spiritual qi of the Foundation Establishment pills transformed and formed 2 streams of qi, one black and one white. The black and white qi circled around and circulated endlessly, forming a Tai Chi yin-yang fish pattern. Master, this pill has a trace of Tao nature. It's amazing. Situ Xiao's heart shook. He was deeply moved and he exclaimed, "This is nothing." Jiang Tian said lightly, "If you reach the level of golden core, you can refine precious medicines. That kind of energy can even explode an alchemy furnace. As for the sacred medicines and divine medicines above the precious medicines, they can even take human form or even become living beings with a lifespan of thousands of years. After entering the divine realm, you can refine the highest level of divine medicines. Sometimes, the true gods use a star as the furnace fire, a galaxy as the medicine liquid, and billions of deities as the medicine catalyst." Speaking of this, Jiang Tian seemed to be thinking of the past. His eyes became full of vicissitudes and he was fascinated. After the medicine is refined, the star will dry up and turn into a supernova and explode. It will even cause the space to collapse and annihilate a galaxy. Ah? The Wolf King and Situ Xiao's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when they heard this. They only felt that their heads were about to explode. They couldn't bear the huge psychological impact. They controlled a country and a sect and thought that standing at the top of the planet, they were complacent and arrogant and had a heroic feeling. But they didn't expect that in Jiang Tian's world, refining a divine medicine would dry up a star and destroy a galaxy. Using the common people as the catalyst, the galaxy as the medicine liquid, and devouring a galaxy to evolve oneself. What kind of heaven-defying means was this? The real work of the deities. Compared to the grandeur that Jiang Tian had described, the two of them immediately felt like they were as insignificant as ants. It's a pity that even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Jiang Tian shook his head and put the foundation-building pill in his hand. He said with mixed feelings, I'm only at the 8th level of qi refinement now. I'm already very lucky to be able to refine such a pill. Boom. Jiang Tian stood up, glanced at the two of them and said in a deep voice, in the next month, I'll use this time acceleration array to push myself to the 9th level of qi refinement. And the next month, I'll push myself to the level of foundation establishment. You two guard the entrance of the valley. No matter what happens, don't alert me. Yes. Situ Xiao and the Wolf King answered and quickly left the temple and rushed to the entrance. Jiang Tian had broken through a level in the ancient Wudong and reached the 8th level of qi refinement, forming the indestructible golden body. With the indestructible golden body, he was not afraid of the erosion of time, armor-piercing bullets, nuclear explosions, or even laser weapons and electromagnetic cannons. It could be said that with such a cultivation, Jiang Tian could already challenge the superpowers of the world and fight against millions of soldiers. Unless there were consecutive nuclear explosions, no country, no faction, no person would be able to kill Jiang Tian. But Jiang Tian still wasn't satisfied. The experience in the Sky Sword Tomb proved that there was a dimensional channel between the ruins of immortality and Earth. And there was even more than one teleportation array. The Immortal of 9 Swords was a Sky Immortal. According to Jiang Tian's estimation, he should be at the 3rd level of foundation establishment, which was already very good. But in the ruins of Immortals, the Immortal of 9 Swords was just a nobody who could be trampled on. Just because he accidentally broke a big shot's glass cup, which was either a decoration or a magic tool, he was kicked to earth. Therefore, there must be a large number of foundation establishment overlords in the ruins of immortality, including golden core and nascent soul old monsters. Whether it was entering the ruins of immortality or surviving in the ruins of immortality, it was an unprecedented challenge for Jiang Tian. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.